Inshallah, we can get started. Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah. Indeed, all praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We praise Him and seek His help and forgiveness. We seek refuge in Allah from our soul's evil and our wrongdoing. He whom Allah guide, no one can misguide, and he whom Allah misguides, no one can guide. I bear witness that there is no God except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, alone without any partners. And I bear witness that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is his abd and final messenger, sending durood upon our Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad kama sallayta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. Allahumma barik ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. I welcome you all with the Islamic greeting. So inshallah, I welcome you all to this webinar of ALMPGs on career around Java technology. Can you guys hear and see my screen? Are we all set? Okay, jazakallah khair. All right, let's get started. Let's dive into it. I am very much excited about this webinar. So moving on, let's do the agenda first. So we have introduction, we have Java technology and other technology associated with Java, resume and its content, and interview process, other important tips for Java developer, and Q&A session at the end. So the thing is that how it all started was that last week, I believe on Friday or Saturday, someone in the ALMPG platform sent a post regarding Java interview, and Brother Fasi, who is one of our community member, he volunteered and he said he was trying to help him out, and he got this idea that why don't we do it for everybody. So alhamdulillah, in just like few days, we set up the whole webinar session, came out with the idea of what to do and how to do it. So this webinar is not, in this webinar, we are not teaching how is Java. Our expectation is that those who are joining the session, they know Java technology, they are working in Java technology either, or looking for job in Java technology, or have at least the basic knowledge and understanding of Java technology. This workshop is, this webinar is more focused towards preparing somebody who is in Java technology, how to get a better job, how to get how to make your way around a good career in Java. So that's the whole agenda behind this webinar. So I want to make your expectations clear so that you guys are aware that, if this is not for you, then you guys can, jump out. But if you are in Java technology, or if you want to be in Java technology, this is a good webinar for you guys, because at least you have an idea that how to look for a job in Java technology. And also, there might be a little difference between people who are joining from different countries, but the format and difference in terms of finding the job on job platforms. We are more focusing towards the American audience, but people who are joining from India or Middle East countries, feel free, don't worry about it. It's just the job portal that differs, but the whole process of finding a job, creating your resume are the same. So I just want to give you guys a heads up. So inshallah. So next, what we have to do. So our webinar format is going to be inshallah 2.5 hours session, and there might be a break of 5 to 10 minutes at the middle of the session, and at the end of the session we're going to take Q&A. So inshallah, without further delay, inshallah, I want to bring in Brother Fasiuddin. What should I say? What should I say about him? Alhamdulillah, he is one of those members in the community who always wants to give back to the community. And mashallah, the moment we have started, we started with LIT group, which was just a Google group. He has been there and he's helping out the members. He's helping out us, and he gives us feedback. He guides us, the whole ALMPG team, and also the members. So alhamdulillah, we are blessed that we have somebody in our community who wants to come forward and, rather than talk, just do the work. So alhamdulillah, without further delay, Brother Fasi, I'm gonna inshallah unmute you. Please give a little bit of introduction, and then inshallah we can get started. Those people who are having trouble joining in through the audio, try the computer one. If that one doesn't work, try the phone. but hope most of the time the joining through computer or the laptop is better. So okay, so the Fusi, I'm unmuting you, and inshallah I will pass you the ball. So inshallah you can get started.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We can hear you. We just have to see if I have just passed you the ball. See if you are able to share your screen. Okay, Jazakallah khair. Yes, we can see. Yes, we can see your screen and we can hear you loud and clear. I'm gonna sit back, relax now a little bit, and you should inshallah start. Jazakallah khair. Go ahead.
I want to start with Surah Fatiha, just the starting of everything. So, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir-Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdinas siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta 'alaihim ghairil maghdubi 'alaihim waladdallin. There are two reasons why I recite the Surah Fatiha. One is it's the beginning of everything. The second thing is there is a meaning to it, and most of us, all of us, inshallah, we always recite Surah Fatiha in our every prayer, but we have to just go back and see what is the meaning of it. So the starting is praise be to Allah. That's the key. Just now Dawood Bhai also mentioned in his introduction, all praises are not for me, you, or ALMPG, it's for Allah. That is the source, everything comes from there. If I am doing something good, something bad, it's all good is from Allah and bad is from our own bad deeds or whatever the mistakes we have, shortcomings we have. So never expect me to be a master, never expect me to be a perfect. So I'm not a perfect. I do have imperfections. I'm a human being. So you just give me a feedback and end of the session, offline, online, whenever. If I do something wrong, you just point me out. I'm expecting a criticism from you, not from the praise. Praise is all for Allah. The second thing I'm trying to say in this whole surah is we are asking for Allah Ta'ala to give us the guidance. So every guidance comes from there. And the other thing is we are saying that Allah Ta'ala is the judge at the day of judgment, not me or you or anyone. So never try to judge others. So I'm not trying to judge others. Whenever I'm saying something, don't take it personally. If I'm saying something wrong, it is not a criticism for one particular individual or anyone. So that is the reason I brought this up. All other meanings most of you know. I'm not going in deep. It's not an Islamic webinar. One other thing I'm trying to say is I have been, as Dawood Bhai said, on this ALMPG since a few months, maybe a year, maybe more. Before that, I was trying to find other platforms where I can help people. So this is one of the platforms, and this is an opportunity for me. I'm not really doing any favor. Mushtaq, my request remote. Okay, fine. So what I was trying to say is give me a feedback, and also I was trying to say is my name is, my phone number, or my email address is already on the website of ALMPG. Most of you might have already seen. If not, I'm showing again. Here it is. So this is the website of ALMPG, and you will see me in Java list here. So you have my email address here mentioned, and I think there was phone number. I don't know if it was there or not, but I will. Most of you have my phone number. If not, my phone number I'm going to provide at on my screen here, so you all can have. And you can call me anytime. You can message me on WhatsApp. My phone number is 404-229-7656. Anyone can contact me anytime. I don't feel bad about it. Only office hours I might not be answering your calls. You can message me. So that is my contact information, my phone number, and my email address is on the website of ALMPG. You can see me here. And the other thing I am trying to say is if I go too loud, too deviating from the topics, try to stop me, because sometimes it's a human nature. Sometimes we deviate and we go somewhere else. Other thing I am trying to say here is I have been working in Java since 99 2000, and I learned Java first time in 1997-98. At that time the Java was like a baby, and since then I am in Java. And regarding my experience over these all slides, whatever you see, 80% of the content I have mentioned in my slides is all about my personal experience. It's not like something I copied somewhere or something. Most of them, most of the technologies, most of the bullet points you see, all of them, alhamdulillah, I got a chance to work on them. And one other thing about this whole webinar was people might be thinking about this is a Java class. No, it's not. If you don't know Java, that is fine. You will be able to learn by yourself. Otherwise, you will be able to learn through so many videos available online. Otherwise, you will be able to learn through a mentor or a coach who are going to give you a daily class. This whole webinar is all about you are going to learn different things, different other technologies associated with Java. And a few things, maybe 20% about Java technologies, 20% about your resume writing, 20% about your interviews, and remaining about how many different types of jobs possible if you learn Java. So it's not just Java developer, but there are so many other types of jobs which I am trying to show in this webinar, so that people don't worry about, oh, I'm not a developer, I'm not a programmer. Even if you're not a developer programmer, you need to learn Java, few things of a Java at least, so that you will build your career in different technologies. That's why I'm not trying to say this is just Java only, but it is anything around Java, anything revolves around Java. So I'm going to start my slides from here. So this is about career around Java technology, and this is in the agenda. As Dawes mentioned, we are trying to say a few things about introduction of this Java technology, and within Java technology, what are the different components are there. I'm going to just show, but I'm not going to explain line by line. And there are so many other technologies associated with Java, and some of the technologies are really important. Some of the technologies you need to know. I'm talking about those technologies too. Then I want to move on to how to write a resume. Why I am talking about resume here is I have given so many interviews in my last 18 years of experience. And those who know on LinkedIn, otherwise those who talk to me, they might know about someone is trying to ask for a request. I don't know, Ashpa something. They are trying to get access to my mouse. That's why getting distracted. Okay, fine. What I was trying to say is, resume wise, I have given so many interviews. I have applied for so many jobs in my career. I have worked for 6-7 companies, and whenever I changed the company, I have given like 30-40 interviews. So I know how you feel when you are sitting in a chair of interviewee. At the same time, in most of my career, wherever I work, alhamdulillah, Allah Ta'ala gave me a chance to take an interview. So I have taken an interview for every 1 year, like 10, 15, 20 interviews I have taken, sometimes face-to-face, sometimes over the phone. In that way, I am trying to give you how many types of resumes I have seen, what are the flaws in them, what kind of common mistakes people do. That's why I'm trying to cover a few things about resume and its contents. And one other thing is the interview process. Because I have given so many interviews and I've taken the interviews, I have a little bit of experience. I cannot say I'm the master, I'm the perfect, I'm not a HR guy, but I can give some information about how interviews will work. And one other thing I'm going to tell is there are a few important tips for Java developers. So I'm going to cover that. At the end, whatever the questions you have, we will answer. Moving on to the next slide. What is the Java language, and what is the historical background of Java language, and the other things. So coming to this Java language, when I learned first time, the coach where I learned this language, he used to say, "Give me your problem, Java is the solution." So at that time, we did not realize what is the importance of Java, but now we are feeling, because there are so many different technologies. Those are all developed in Java. For example, recently we had a webinar, the AWS. That AWS, all the backend, whatever is written by the Amazon, it is written in Java language. Similarly, there are so many other different components, and there are so many products which are developed in Java itself. So it's a strong language, and so far it is surviving because its base is really strong. The way they have designed that language is really strong. And one other important thing they have decided when they developed this language was, you develop once, run anywhere. That was the initial slogan of the Java language. The way they designed this language is, it runs on a machine called Java Virtual Machine. That virtual machine is a small program which will be installed on any of your environments. Like you have a Unix environment, you have Macintosh environment, you have Windows environment, whatever the environments you have, whatever the operating system you have, you will install the JVM. On top of JVM, the Java programs, Java applications will run. So that is the secret of Java, why it is you will be able to develop once and run anywhere. Because when you compile this Java application, it gives you a .class file, and that .class file is platform independent. You can develop on Windows environment and deploy on Unix environment. That's the most of the companies do. That is the common practice. And some people have a Macintosh laptop. Some companies use Macintosh laptops, Apple computers. They develop in Mac computers and deploy on Unix boxes. So that is one basic thing they have decided on day one when this Java language was created. The second thing I was trying to say is the historical background of Java. So as just now I said, I started my Java training in 97, 98. At that time, this Java was just a baby, and it came into the existence. And in next few slides, I'm going to show how it was and how it is going. It is right now. So since then, I'm in Java, and I have seen how it is growing, how much it is grown right now. So I'm not going to go deeper into the history of the Java, but that's how it started, and why it is so popular. Here is the thing. Java language, when they developed for first time, there was only one company called Sun Microsystems that was working on Java and the technology of Java and JVM. Later, what happened is the other companies started exploring how they can make money. So, for example, IBM has their own JVM. When you say Java, you need not be using Sun JVM. You can have your own JVM. You can write your own JVM, and you can run your applications on the JVM. If the industry accepts that, then you can make money on it. So that's how IBM is making money. Similarly, the WebLogic started their own applications, and Oracle started. So all these companies have developed their own products, and all these products are using Java, and they are making money out of Java, and all these companies don't want to go bankrupt, and that is the reason I am going to say Java is going to stay in the market for longer time. So my third and fourth bullet points are talking about why it is popular and how long it might stay popular. So as long as these companies are planning to stay afloat, they are planning to stay in the market, Java is going to stay, because they are all using Java for their technologies, whatever they have developed. In other words, one other thing I'm going to tell here is there are so many companies who developed their applications, their products using Java, and there is some maintenance always in those products. Somewhere you need to have enhancements, somewhere you need to have bug fixes, So those companies are not going to get rid of their existing running applications in production. So you will have a job prospects going forward at least minimum 5 to 10 years. That is my expectation at this time. And most of the times when we say any language, we talk about design patterns. So there are so many different design patterns, and the important point is Java uses most of the design patterns. So design patterns is one thing you might see in your interviews. Now I am talking about real use of your time. So about job, resume, interviews. So design patterns is one important thing you face in your interviews. People ask what kind of design patterns do you use, and what design pattern. There are two different types of design patterns. One is software design patterns. So many other languages and everything uses that, but there are some design patterns specifically started when Java came into existence. So you need to learn about the design patterns, and you need to learn about how to answer a question related to a design pattern. For example, Ashfaq Big, I don't know, someone is trying to request for this keyboard and mouse. Okay, so design pattern, one of the design pattern is MVC is a popular design pattern. Many of the companies, many of the products use the design pattern where you have a model, view, and controller. So view is something what you see in your application. It may be a web-based application, it may be a standalone application. For example, Swing or AWT is a standalone applications, and web applications you might think about a HTML. It's a view. And model is the data, the backend, whatever you have, the objects. And in between you have a controller, that is the logic which drives the data and which connects the data and the view. So MVC is the popular design pattern. Similarly, singleton is the popular design pattern where you create one single object, and in whole life cycle of your application there will be only one object maintained. And a lot of people might know the calendar class in the Java API has a method called getInstance, but there is no, you cannot create a calendar using calendar object is equal to new calendar. So you cannot create a calendar object, but you can get a calendar object created by the system. This is one simple example. Similarly, you have graphics and other things. That's all about design patterns. I'm not going to stay long here. There are best practices. Every company and J2EE has some best practices. For example, writing a class with a capital letter in the beginning, and in between, if you have multiple words in your class name, you will use a camel case. That is one simple example of a J2EE best practices. Similarly, when you are working in a company have their own best practices. So if you are a learner on my webinar, you need to understand you have to follow the design best practices laid out by the company. And if you are a beginner learning a Java, try to learn what are the best practices the J2E provides. You can find, you can search online. There are so many different websites which will tell about what is the best practice and all those things. So next I'm going to move on to another slide. Java language. I'm not going to stay a lot of time, spend a lot of time on these slides, because either you know what is Java language, otherwise you can get any book or any online document or any tutorial which tells you how many things you have in Java language. So I'm just trying to give you an overview of these slides. These are all about the Java language and fundamentals of Java language. But when I'm on these slides, I'm going to give few tips for the people who are searching for jobs in Java language. So the first line, if you see object-oriented programming system, OOPS concepts, These are the 4 different things we are talking about: the abstraction, encapsulation, polymorphism, and inheritance. So you might expect an interview question saying that what are the OOPS concepts? Give me those all four names. Otherwise, someone say, give me any of the 4 names and explain about it. For example, inheritance is a popular thing in object-oriented programming. It is nothing related to Java. Remember that. Any object-oriented programming will have a concept called inheritance. So in Java also you have that same concept of inheritance. You will declare a superclass, and in your superclass, whatever functionality you have, the inheriting classes will inherit by default unless they want to overwrite it. Similarly, you have a polymorphism and encapsulation and other things, but this is the standard interview questions. At least 20 to 30% of the interviews, people ask one question from this first line. Other keywords are interface, object. These are all related to your Java, and most of the times you will see a question about the static blocks. The 6th bullet point in this slide, people talk about what is static method, what is static block, and how it works. And similarly, one other way to ask the question in interviews is static keyword and class variable versus instance variable. So if you declare a variable as static, it becomes a class variable, and if you don't declare as a static, it will be your instance variable. And most of the times people will ask about the garbage collection, heap memory, stack memory, and character number here is one of the primary building blocks of Java language. Character is a number in Java, and there are other different float and double different types of primitive types, and wrapper classes is one other thing in Java where every data type in Java, like character, a number, or integer, float, all those things will have a wrapper class. And packages, imports, arrays, conditional, these are all the things you know. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this slide. Next, coming to methods, classes, and inner classes. Inner classes is one concept a lot of people don't use, but in most of the interviews you might expect a question. Maybe at least 10 to 20% of the interviews people talk about what is inner class, what is static inner class, and all those things. And methods wise, there are different types of methods, like you have declared a method in your superclass and you are trying to extend use that same method in your subclass. Otherwise you want to change its contents of the method. That is called overriding. So overriding, overloading, these are the common questions you will expect in your interviews. Design patterns, one more time, singleton, access modifiers. Access modifiers is also one standard question you will see in your interviews. What is how many different types of access modifiers are there and how it works? What is public, what is private? Private is within your class, you cannot use it outside. Protected is subclasses can use, your class can use, and public anyone can use. Default means within your package you can use. So these are the standard questions you will expect in your interviews. And coming to this and super, these two looks like a small things in Java programming language, but many of the times when you have given a these days what happens is they are sending you a coding exercise which you have to complete and send it within the given time frame. For example, 4 o'clock you have received an email, 6 o'clock you have to send it back. So in those kind of exercises they will test you how you are going to use this and super. So that is one other thing I'm trying to give a tip here. And you have final, static, transient, synchronizer. These are the things, some of the things we use, some of the things we don't really use, but this is one standard interview question in the interviews. They will ask what is transient variable, what is synchronizer block or synchronizer method, and these are the things. So synchronizer, for example, if I go deeper, synchronizer is the keyword which we use either for a group of code, otherwise you will be using for a method, and whatever the code you are going to use, that will be accessed by one single thread. That's how you have to explain. And transient comes into picture when you are using the serialization. There are string buffer, string builder, toString and tokenizer. So these are the standard things. Most of the companies in most of the projects you use these classes. Similarly, date, calendar, date format, these are all things you use in your projects. Coming back to next language fundamentals, there are Java beans, POJOs, plain old Java objects, POJO. It's nothing but a simple Java class. It has a few properties and getter setter methods. Serialization. Okay, I was talking about the history. I'm going back to my previous topic, how the Java evolved. The Java 1.1, when it came, at that time, everything, whatever we discussed so far, plus exception handling was there, and serialization was the end. That's all we have. And there was no other company other than Sun Microsystems working on it. And in those days, getting a job was very tough. Of course, today also tough. So if someone knows Java and also they know serialization, they used to get the job. That kind of an important concept the serialization was. So what is actually serialization is, you will declare your class and then you say implement serializable. It's a interface in Java IO package, and when you just write java.io.serializable, if it is implementing your class contents, when you create an object, that object can be persisted onto a hard drive. Otherwise, it can be transmitted over the network. And java.io.serializable is one different typical interface in Java API, which has no method to implement. In general, when you say interface, definitely you have to implement the methods declared inside the interface. But this is one special interface, also called as marker interface. So when you just mark your class, which say implements java.io.serializable, the properties, the contents of your class can be persisted onto a hard drive into a file. Otherwise, you can transmit them over the network. One other important thing here is, if there are some properties in your class you don't want to persist or you don't want to transmit over the network, you can mark them as a transient. Just before we were talking about some other keywords, the transient keyword was there. So the transient is one keyword which you use for your properties, and those properties you don't want to persist or you don't want to pass over the network. What actually happens when you say serializable, you are trying to save the object properties, or for example, if you have a employee name, address, phone number, those all properties you want to save to a hard drive, save to a file, and when you are trying to read it back, you will read them back. But here there is a trick. What if after compiling the class, I change the contents of the properties of the class, you change number of properties, otherwise type of properties or something, and you cannot read the receiver end. The other, for example, you have written an object into a file on January 1st, 2018, and on February 4th, 2018, you are trying to read it, but when you are writing, the class structure was different, and now we are trying to read it, the class structure is different. So this is one important thing a lot of people don't know, and someone might ask in interview. So you have to be prepared. You try. This is an exercise for the people who are interested to learn about the serialization, and come back to me and ask questions. One other important thing, when Java 1.2 came in the market, it came with collections framework. Earlier we used to have only two data structures in the Java language. There was a vector and there was a hash table. Then they come up with a new framework called collections framework, and after 1.2, getting a job was easy if people know what is collections framework, what is set, what is list, map, queue. So under the list you have array list, linked list, different types of lists. Under the set you have tree set, hash set, and other things. And standard interview question even today is, what is the difference between a hash map and a hash table? What is the difference between list and vector? What is the difference between set and this hash set and hash map? So these are the things you just focus when you are preparing for an interview. And remember, in your list of things to learn before you go for an interview, just go through these things. And most of the interviews, at least 40% of the interviews, someone may ask you a question about the collections framework. So that's all about collections framework, data structures, Java sockets. And Java sockets is one important thing which we use in Java, and these days most of us might not be using it directly, but you need to understand what is Java socket, how it works, and for that you need to have a little bit of knowledge of networking too. Recently, whoever attended that AWS webinar, they were talking about the IP addresses, they were talking about the port numbers, they were talking about the routing tables and other things. So socket, in terms of networking term, it's like an address. So for example, you have a building in a city. So the building in a city has an address. For example, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, Washington, D.C. Right? So that is one address. That address, in terms of computers, the address is a combination of an IP address and a port number. So every socket, whether you are either receiving or providing, there are two types of sockets. One is the receiver socket, the other one is provider socket. Provider socket is something like a shop. You opened a shop and you were waiting for a customer. And receiver socket is something like a customer, whenever they want, they can come. They have a liberty to come, but the shop owner has to open the shop morning 9 to evening 10 o'clock, whatever the time they are open, and they have to be listening, keep listening, no matter how many customers are coming or not coming. Too many customers are coming, no customers are coming, they have to listen. So there are two types of sockets, the provider socket and the receiver socket. The provider socket is nothing but a server. For example, you have a Tomcat server, WebLogic server, Apache server, whatever the servers you have, all these servers are sockets. You can write your own server. To write a server, the starting point, the building block is socket. The receiver socket is the one which needs to know at which IP address it has to go and at which port number it has to contact. Port number is something like a suite number or an apartment number, and IP address is like an address, like I said, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, Washington, D.C. And then is another concept called URL. We'll come back to that. So in URL, you will see a www.google.com, ALMPG.com. This is the name. So if you have a IP address and a port number, you will be able to contact that service provider. But a lot of people don't remember the port numbers. That's why they come up with the names. For example, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, Washington, D.C. is nothing but a White House. If you call any child, they'll say, oh, I know White House. But if they say 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, no one knows. So we are not good at remembering the numbers, but we are good at remembering the names. So name is nothing but a host, the URL, and a combination of port number and IP address is serving socket, otherwise server socket, provider socket. Java IO is one important package in the Java API, and you will be expecting a lot of interview questions around how you will deal with the streams, how you will deal with the files and those things. I'm not going to go deeper again. Next slide. Threads is one important thing. There may be like 20% of the Java projects where people are going to use directly threads. Otherwise, these days, all the high-end servers we are using, those servers are going to take care of threads. Applets is one thing where maybe 10-20% of the applications are using applets. For example, you have to sign a document online, you will use Java applet. One example. And to create such a secure applet, you might be having a signed applet. So that is, signing an applet is one other topic. I can talk about it for half an hour. So you just search online and find out, and if you have any questions, you can come back. But only 10-20% of the project they're using this applet. Someone might ask a question, but that's rare. AWT swing also these days a lot of people are not using. XML, XSD. So primarily Java programming language is not all about XML and XSD, but whenever you are working as a Java developer or any other similar technology, these are the things we are using, because XML is one language. It's a markup language, and communication between multiple different companies, vendors, partners is going to happen through this XML. So you need to have a clear understanding how XML works and how XML parsers are written in Java. You might not be writing those programs, but if you have the understanding, you will be able to do better troubleshooting in XML. RMA, Corba, these are the olden days technologies. These days you are not really directly using them, but you need to know how this distributed computing works and how communication between different applications works. So to get to that, you can read through some of the things like RMA and Corba, but that's not really a popular thing. JDBC is really important topic, and standard interview questions you might expect in JDBC might be related to transactions, might be related to difference between different statements, like you have a statement, you have a prepare statement, and you have a callable statement. So what is the difference between these three? So someone might ask you in like 20 to 30% of the interviews, you might expect a question around JDBC and how you will handle transactions, how you will use the transaction parameters and those things. Result set and metadata. There are two different types of metadata. There is a result set metadata and database metadata. Database metadata will give you the information about the entire database, and result set metadata will give you the information about the result set which you have fetched just now. So those are the things we have, and we have two different types of applications in general. It's nothing related to Java, but Java also has that concept. One is a web application, the other one is client-server application. So these days, many of the places you don't see a client-server applications, but web applications are there. And one simple example of a client-server application can be you have developed a Swing-based UI, and in the back end you have a database, and this UI talks to the database. One other example of a client-server application can be when you go to a shop, when you go like Dunkin' Donuts or you go to different shops, there is a POS, point of sale. In that point of sale, you see someone is keying the information, someone is ordering your coffee, someone is ordering your food, and that front-end application is nothing but a client, and in the back end there will be a server. So that is one simple example of a client-server application. And in the same context, I have seen one other project. That project, my company was working on that project. The project was it's a commerce related project. As I said, there are point of sale in any of the shops where you go. So they were trying to internationalize. There is a concept called internationalization in Java. The internationalization is all about providing a one single application to different languages, different countries. For example, you have a McDonald's, and that McDonald's is having a POS, point of sale application, and that application, when people are using in US, they can use in English language. But if there is a McDonald's in Europe, there is a McDonald's in China, in Japan, they don't know English language, but they want to use that exact same application. The advantage of using exact same application is if the company wants to enhance or modify that application, they can modify only once, but front-end interface will change. So what they are trying to do is, for all these different applications, they will create labels. For each country, for each language, they will have a file, property file, and the property file has all the labels. For example, coffee. Coffee can spell in different wording. In Chinese, it can be in different, the wording, the label can be different in Germany. You create those all labels in a property file, and in the back end, you just say that fetch all the labels and show it to the point of sale application. So that project was all about making an existing application into international application. And the product, they have sold it to FedEx, Kinko's, they have sold it to different companies. And what the companies do is they will create multiple different property files. That's it. You need not be developing an application again to deploy that exact same application in another country. So that was the beauty of internationalization. So that's client server HTTP protocol. So HTTP protocol is again not a Java related. W3C, Worldwide Consortium, is the organization which defines the HTTP standards or web standards, and at international level they will define how the communication has to happen between different companies or between your browser and the server, and this is all defined by W3C. And in HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol, that is the full form of it, underlying it uses TCP/IP protocol, and within the TCP/IP protocol there is a concept called packets. So when you say http://www.almpg.com, the browser makes a request to server using a TCP/IP protocol. As we said just now, there is a URL, and within the URL you have a IP address and a port number, and it makes a contact. When it receives the response back, it disconnects. So making a connection, getting the response, displaying in a browser, this is all about HTTP protocol. In general, what is the protocol means? Protocols is nothing but a set of rules. For example, in many of the newspapers, we'll see a dignitary come, they have broken the protocol, Prime Minister went and received the dignitary, President went to and received the dignitary. So protocol is nothing but set of rules. And when it's the HTTP protocol, the browsers have to follow the HTTP protocol, and the servers have to accept that HTTP protocol. And any HTTP server is called as web server, and the simple example of a HTTP server is Internet Information Server from Microsoft, Apache server from Apache. So these are the examples. URL is Uniform Resource Locator. You want to locate a resource, you want to load a page in your browser. Web container is nothing but the container, the application which can host a HTML file. Within HTTP, there is another thing called methods. So if you want to receive some data, it's a get. If you want to post something, it's a post. You want to put something, it's a put. Delete, you want to delete. There's a spelling mistake here. Next thing, when Java 1.4 came into existence, they introduced this servlet and JSP concepts. And at that time, if someone knows servlet, someone knows JSP, they used to get the job. So always in the job market, there is a race. Whoever is ahead of the race, they will win the race. So as I said, first servlets was serialization was something which will fetch the job. Then this JSP fetch the job. Then the EJB fetches the job. So like that, the all other things I'm skipping here, scriptlets, servlets, and all those things. If anyone has a question about these things, we can discuss offline. I can tell all these things in detail. Next is Spring MVC, JSF. Yeah, these are the other technologies came into market. That's why I said in my slide it's Java and other open source technologies. So other open source technologies started moving up with struts. You see here struts 1 in my first line. Struts 1 is the first technology which was outside of Sun Microsystems, and they were trying to solve some problem, and it was I think 2003 2004 time. At that time, if someone knows struts, they will get a job. That's how the market was. And why it was so popular was it was providing you a technology. The technology was to load a page in a browser, And when page loads, and if there is a form, for example, you have text field, text boxes, and buttons. This is the standard way of writing a web application, and you want to interact from the back end, and if there is an error, you want to display that error back. All these things are built into structs. That was the reason they were so popular, but there were so few flaws in it. Then Spring MVC came into picture, then JSF provided by Sun Microsystems itself. So that is all about validation framework. Is also part of struts, and Java also provides some validation frameworks. For example, you have a text box, someone is entering a number, and you are expecting a regular string, not a number. Otherwise, you are expecting a number, but someone is entering a string, and you have some rules. You will be able to write some regular expression, and you do the validation, and all these validation frameworks are provided by Java. So there are two types of validation frameworks you will see. One is provided by struts, one is provided by Java. You can use whatever you want. Even Hibernate has its own validation framework. Tiles is another technology which was hot when these struts came, and we have Spring framework. This is the current technology. Even in 2018, if you know Spring, for it may be a Spring Batch, it may be a Spring Boot, it may be Spring MVC, Spring Integration, Spring AOP. If you are master of Spring, if you can answer whatever the questions you have, there is a fair possibility to fetch a job in 2018 also. And these days, the most popular Spring framework is Spring Boot. So in Spring Boot, what they are doing, why it is so popular is, within the Spring Boot framework, they are giving you a small Tomcat server, and in your local environment, you will be able to test that application without a delay. But in olden days, before Spring Boot, what we used to do, we used to develop the whole application and deploy onto an application server and test it, and if something wrong, you have to restart an application server. Otherwise, you have to redeploy the application itself. These will waste the precious time of a Java developer. Java developer working in a company means company is paying for that. Every minute counts. So the Spring Boot technology came into picture recently, and it is getting so much of momentum, so much of popularity these days. Most of the companies started using it. And if you are able to answer the questions about Spring Boot technology, there is a fair possibility you will get a job. So learn Spring Boot, just simple, download the Spring Boot in your local computer and write small applications and practice and see how it works. Spring integration, one other complicated technology not every company, not every application uses, but it has a lot of momentum if the company is using. But try to learn if you have a time. It's a good to have in your resume. Spring integration. Spring Batch is also same thing. Not every company uses. Maybe 30 to 40% company may be using. When the company has in interaction with other company, for example, there is a company A and company B, and company A wants to generate a file and send it to company B, and that file has data. You will use Spring Batch. So what it does is, it will read the contents from the database, writes into a file, and processes whatever the process it has to do. For example, you have to transform something, you have to hide some of the fields, you have to mask some of the fields. All those things you will be able to do using a Spring Batch. It's a batch application. It reads the contents from the database, writes to a file, otherwise reads the contents from the file and writes to the database, otherwise read the contents from the file. For each line you want to make a web service call, anything. These are all different types of combinations you will be able to do if you are using Spring Batch. So Spring Batch is one of the technology these days companies are using, as long as they have file processing kind of things. String utils. It is there are two different types of string utils: Apache Lang, and also Spring provides the string utils. String utils is nothing but you want to do some checks and you want to do some manipulations of the string you are going to use. And within Spring you have Spring Beans and Spring Commons. I'm not going to go into much detail here. Previously I told that XML. So these days a lot of companies are using, instead of XML, they are using JSON. The reason why they are using JSON these days is uh, most of us know these days the popular devices in everyone's home, everyone's hands, even in companies, is the tablet, otherwise a smartphone. So these tablets and smartphones are using a different technology. The technology may be Java, it may not be Java, but to interact with those devices, you need to have different types of data communication system. To transmit data from your server to this mobile device, you need to have different types of this medium. The structure is JSON. So it's in JSON structure, in XML structure, you will be sending a data along with the name of the data, for example, employee, and name of the employee is, for example, John Doe. And you have an address, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. You have a phone number like 703-799 something number. So there is a label and a data. Label and a data separated by a colon. It's a JSON format. Otherwise, you have an XML format. And you have data in XML format. Otherwise, you want to have you have a data in XML format. You want to convert it to JSON. You have a data in JSON format. You want to convert it into XML. Otherwise, you have a Java object. You want to convert it to XML. Java object you want to convert to JSON. The technology available in the market is a third-party open source technology called Jackson. So Jackson is the technology which we are using in the companies to convert a Java object into XML, or Java object into JSON, or JSON to XML, XML to JSON. So these are transformations you will be able to do if you use the Jackson technology. So if you don't know about it, go back and search online and download that API and do some practice so that your resume will have the technology and you will be able to answer the questions if someone is asking about JSON, and otherwise they are going to ask you how did you transform the data from Java object to JSON or XML. Other technologies here we have JPA or ORM or Hibernate. So these even IBATIS, MyBATIS, top links, these are all ORM technologies, object relational mapping. So the companies thought Java developers are good at handling the Java objects, then the database tables. So what they did is they have converted all the database tables into Java objects, and every column in the database table is mapped to a Java property, and every table in the database is mapped to a Java class. In that context, so many companies, so many different non-profit organizations created the technologies. JPA is the technology created by Sun Microsystems itself, Java Persistence API. What they do is they will create all these mapping classes, and from there it's all Java. Hibernate is a non-profit open source software which is really popular these days. So many of the companies are using for last like 10 to 15 years, maybe 12 years. And if you learn Hibernate, if you master it Hibernate, if you have expertise at Hibernate, there is a fair possibility you will be able to fetch a job using Hibernate. IBATIS and MyBATIS are very age-old technologies where you will define your objects. It's not about objects, but you can write a standard queries, not like Hibernate and JPA. And I have used this IBATIS in 2003 first time. Now you can understand how old it is. In 2017 also I used this IBATIS and MyBATIS. So it is still there, it's not dead. So some of the companies are using, some of the companies might not be using, but advantage of using these technologies is you write the query, you have a custom query to execute that will be executed written into a XML, and then you will be able to map to your method, and you will be able to fetch the data, otherwise modify the data and maintain the transactions and all those things. Toplink is one other framework people use, but not all. Many of the companies are using it, but if you know it, that is fine. If you don't know, try to search and understand about it. In Hibernate, you have criteria, you have session, query, transactions, connections, and all those things. One standard interview question you will be able to face, you might be facing in Hibernate is what is session and how you open, when you close. And one other thing you might expect in your interviews is session factory. What is session factory and why it is really required to have a session factory? How many session factories in an application you might see, and what session factory represents. These are the standard questions you will see in Hibernate technology. And criteria, query, these are the useful concepts in Hibernate, and how you will open connections, where you will define connection parameters. These are the standard questions you will see in interviews for Hibernate. And many of the times people say, what is the advantage of using Hibernate? This is the one standard question you will see in many of the interviews. So these are the two things I mentioned there: Hibernate caching and Hibernate lazy loading. In Spring, again, you have Spring Beans, Spring Application Context, Messaging, JMS, MVC, DO, JDBC. These are the different types of Spring components people are using. And the standard question you might expect in your interviews in Spring is, what is that XML file where you will configure Spring Beans, that is the application context, and how you load the application context, where you define the application context. Many of the times you will see errors when your application starts because of the problems in application context or location of application context. One other thing Spring provides is the messaging or JMS. So at least 40 to 60% of the companies will have a messaging system in their applications. So you need to learn and understand the concepts of JMS and messaging. JMS is a common standard term, Java Messaging Service. It is part of J2EE framework, but Spring has its own implementation, and a lot of people are using because Spring is open source and companies want to take advantage of that. And Spring has Spring MVC, Spring has Spring JDBC or Spring DAO to access the database, to maintain the transactions and those things. And Spring also has dependency injection. In that same context, we have J2EE containers. So many of you might know the server names, but some of you might not know what is actually server is. Server is nothing but a J2EE container. So you have a Apache Tomcat, you have a JBoss, you have WebLogic, you have Sphere. There may be many different, like Oracle has its own server. In India, there used to be a company called Pramati Technology. I don't know whether it is alive or dead, but a lot of companies used to use their server called Pramati server. So you can write your own server if you have that much of patience and resources. What they have to do is they have to follow the standards laid out by Java creators, that is Sun Microsystems. So they created a framework and said, if you follow these A, B, C, D steps, you can call your application as a application server. Application server is nothing but a J2EE container, and internal to that, what they are going to do is how to manage threads, how to manage transactions, how to manage database connections, and how to manage the memory. These are the things the J2EE container will do by itself. You need not be taking care of that. You as a Java developer concentrate on core development and forget about the thread management, transaction management, connection management, and other things. Of course, you have to specify, for example, transaction management. You have to specify what kind of transaction attributes you want to use, what kind of transaction parameters you have to use. You are going to specify that inside your EJB, inside your Spring, or inside whatever the technology you are using. But maintaining those transactions is the responsibility of application server. Connections management, you have to specify when the connection has to open, when the connection has to close, when the connection has to go back to the connection pool. These are the things you have to specify, but how to maintain those connections and how to close, open, all those things, you just leave it to the J2EE container, nothing but an application server. Similarly, the memory management, garbage collection, These all things are taken care by your J2E container. The next is Agile. These days, whenever you go for a job, whenever you see a job description, most of you might have received an email saying that, do you know Agile? So that is the common keyword. So the people who are already working on this webinar, they might know what is Agile, but people who don't know Agile, it's nothing. It's not about any technology. It's about the way the company operates. So in olden days, what they used to do is there used to be a system called SDLC, Software Development Lifecycle. The life cycle has A, B, C, D steps like a workflow. So in the beginning, the requirement comes, and they will write the requirement document. They will write this system SRS, system requirement specification document, and all those things. Then the document is ready. They will go to client, and they will review the document. They will come back, make changes. Then they will create wireframes. They will show it to the client. Then they will develop. Then show it to the client. This whole process used to take like 6 months to 1 year, depending upon size of the project. So when client gave you the order in January and the client is seeing that end product sometime in December, that was too late for a client to see the end outcome. So to shorten that cycle, what they did is they come up with a new operating idea called Agile. So it's just a methodology how the company has to work. In the Agile, what they are doing is they are taking small components. They are dividing the whole big project into small components, and each component will be worked upon, and these components will be developed in 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 1 month time frame. And in the beginning of this cycle, they are going to take the work and do the planning, how it has to be done. And after that, they will implement and they will do the testing. At the end of the cycle, they are going to show it to the client. So this whole cycle is called as sprint. And other keywords they use, Kanban or Scrum, and Rally is one of the software. It's a commercial software. You have to buy it, and when the company buy, they will create small epics. That epic might be called as a story. Otherwise, sometimes they will have one epic. Under that, there are multiple stories. So each story is nothing but a small functionality. For example, you have existing application. You are trying to enhance it, add 2 more extra field. Otherwise, you already have a date field. You want to add a date picker to that date field. This can be a story. So they will define a story, and they will define how many different people are going to work on it and who is going to work on it, assign it to the person, and every day morning they are going to come back and review how the work was yesterday, what were the things completed, what is the plan today, and you have any roadblocks in your execution. It's kind of a status call, and they call it as a stand-up every day morning. So Rally version 1, HP Agile Manager, and sometimes people are using Jira also. So these 4 are the different technologies, tools used by the companies to execute this Agile process. You need to know basics of this thing. You need not be master of it, but if you are already working, well and good. But most of the Java developers these days are simple question from either recruiters or clients or many people saying that, do you know Agile? Did you work in Agile? Are you interested to work in Agile? Are you comfortable working in Agile? So these are the things. And Jira, Bugzilla, these are the things we also use to track the defects. In every company, in every project, there is a possibility of expecting some defects. So those are defects you will be going to list and track in Bugzilla and Jira. And in the bracket I have mentioned Jira versus SVN, CVS versus Bugzilla. So I have worked in companies, there may be many other technologies, but these are my personal experiences. So where if you commit a file to CVS, it shows up in Bugzilla. It shows, okay, these are the different files which are committed for this particular task, otherwise story, or whatever you call it as. Similarly, SVN and Jira has the connectivity. So there may be many other technologies, but I did not work on them. Other technologies. So coming to the other technologies these days, the companies are using JavaScript a lot, and Ajax is there for last 6 to 8 years. Many of the companies are using Ajax. Angular is the most popular hot keyword these days. So in your resume today, if you are an expert Java developer and you also know Angular, there is 90% possibility of getting a job. That's my observation. I cannot say for sure, but that is my observation. If you are expert in Java and you know language fundamentals of Java and also you know Angular, there is a 90% possibility of fetching a job. Bootstrap is one technology, CSS, jQuery, these are all related to UI. So if you have time at home, you can explore these things, and there are a lot of people, maybe like 10% of the IT workforce, they are working only on these 4 or 5 technologies. That's it. And they are going to get competitive pay like any other IT guy. You can make your career in these technologies: Angular, CSS, or jQuery, Ajax, JavaScript. These are the technologies you can make it your career itself. You need not know Java. You might know some simple basics of Java, but they are not really necessarily required. So one stream where you can make a job, make a living for now is this UI. And another important role in IT industry is called as UI architect. UI architect is the one who talks to clients and quickly makes screens and show it to the client and reviews with the client, and the client will be able to see as if it's a final product. So that is one good thing these days. If you know these technologies, you will be able to make a living. Otherwise, if you know Java and these technologies, there's a fair possibility of getting a job. The reason why these technologies are so popular these days is these are the technologies which are going to give you an interface. Interface is nothing but a screen. That screen looks good in desktop. That screen looks good in tablet. That screen looks good in your phone, smartphone. So many of the companies are trying to compete with each other to provide a better UI to their users, and that is possible using these technologies. And that whole concept is called as responsive design. Responsive design means your application UI responds differently based on what kind of device you are using. That's why they call it as a responsive design. So these are the technologies used in the responsive design. There are other scripting languages like Python, Unix Shell, Node.js, and React.js. The first line in this UI, what I'm talking about, is all real UI. These are all not really UI technologies, but scripting technologies. These scripting technologies are used on the backend. So if you are a Java developer and you know Python, you know shell scripting, you know Node.js, all 4 or 2 of 4 or 1 of 4, there is a fair possibility you will get a job. One other way of showing the importance of these scripting languages. They are not big technologies, but they have their importance as of today. Similarly, there are other technologies which might give you a job. I'm forgetting the name, but there is another scripting language which will these days is really gaining momentum. Yeah, just before I was telling, right, networking, the sockets, packets, and protocols, you need to know basics of these things. When you are working in a company, most of the companies are dealing with files. For example, you have a bank, and the bank is processing transactions of another bank. For example, I have deposited my check from bank A and deposited into bank B. Bank of America check I deposited into, for example, PNC Bank, and PNC check I have deposited into Bank of America, and they wanted to know how many checks from the other bank deposited overnight in one day. So they will send a transaction file. The transaction file goes in terms of a CSV file, otherwise text file or JSON or something, and they have to transfer that file using a protocol called FTP protocol, file transfer protocol, otherwise secure file transfer protocol, SFTP or FTP. And to transfer these files, to connect to those systems, we use this PuTTY. You will use FileZilla, you will use WinSCP, you might use MobaXterm. These are the 4 different tools I have used in different companies. You might have many other tools available in the market. The advantage of using these tools is you will be able to see the file system of a Unix on your Windows box as if you are browsing your local system. That is the advantage. And if you want to transfer the files from your system to those boxes, Unix boxes, or you are trying to fetch a file from Unix boxes to your boxes, you will use these tools. So you can download this software, they are freely available. You can try something and make yourself expert. And if you know these technologies, if you mention these technologies in your resume, that will be a plus for you. Next thing is Unix commands. These days, Unix commands are kind of a basic requirement for a Java developer. And even if you are not a Java developer, you are working on the other technology, better to learn whatever the basic Unix commands. For example, listing of a directory, moving a file, viewing a file, modifying a file, saving a file, looking for permissions of a file, changing the permissions of a file. These are the basic things you try to learn in terms of Unix. There are so many different types of Unix flavors like Red Hat, SUSE, AHP. Apple Macs, the basic operating system is again looks like a Unix. Why I have listed specifically Apple here is I worked in a company. On day 1 when I went there, they have given me Apple computer, and then I realized the interface what they are using, the command prompt, is nothing but a Unix. The whole file system is Unix. So that was a different kind of experience for me. Why I am telling here is the people who are searching for a job don't expect when you go to job on day 1 they are going to give you a Windows box or Windows laptop. They may be giving you an Apple computer. First day you feel good, but then you will realize how difficult it is to manage those kind of different types of environments and operating systems. So try to learn if you have access to those systems. Cron jobs and schedulers. These are the things I have used in my multiple different companies wherever I was working. Many of the companies will have a nightly jobs, and those are called as cron jobs. And when you search online, you will be able to see what is cron and how it works, and also you will see the syntax. For example, every 4 hours a job has to run, every 6 hours the job has to run, every 5 minutes the job has to run. These are the different types of expressions, cron expressions. You have to define, you have to specify. You need to know the basics of it so that tomorrow when you are in the job, it will be easy for you to do those configurations or modify those configurations or already existing configuration you want to understand. And schedulers are there. So there are different types of scheduling softwares we have. So you will be able to schedule the jobs. Otherwise, you can modify the schedulers, you can code the schedulers, and you can debug the schedulers if you have knowledge of it. So if you already have knowledge, that's fine. If you don't have, try to learn. It will be good if you have those things in your resume, and in interview someone might ask you a question about them. The simplest question is, do you know these things or not? Control M is another technology we use it in our company to schedule the jobs. Data upload, file transfer. There is a class inside the Java called runtime.getRuntime. As I said, it's a singleton. You cannot create a runtime objects. So you can execute any commands of that particular operating system using runtime.get runtime. If you are running on Windows operating system, you will get a handle to your operating system using runtime.get runtime. If you are running your application on Unix, when you say get runtime.get runtime, you will get the handle of Unix environment, and there you can run the command. For example, you want to copy a file, you want to delete a file, you want to create a folder, all those things you will be able to do. So this is one fun thing you can do. You can practice at home. You can write a small program and enjoy it. Yeah, in Spring Batch, these are the things you use. If your company is using Spring Batch, most of the times you will see this data upload, file transfer, batch processing. Writing the shell scripts is one other thing you might see in the company. Whenever you have written a batch application, that application has to run on the Unix box, so you have to write a shell script. You are a Java developer, but you need to know basics of Unix too. We already mentioned about this Spring Boot, Spring MVC already, right? DB.
Brother Prati,
Yeah.
Brother Prati, let's take a 5-minute break. You have been speaking from last 1 hour. Let's take quick 5-minute break, and then we can rejoin. Inshallah.
All right. Yeah.
Okay. Jazakallah khair. Brother Fasi, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Inshallah, let's begin, inshallah.
All right. So we were talking about so many different Java and other technologies so far. In between, I have a slide about the database. So any application in the whole world cannot be completed without the database storing your information. These days you have a MySQL database, NoSQL database, but previously used to have a relational database, and Java supports both. Uh, Many of the times we feel that we are Java developer, why don't we learn about database? Why are we expecting something in the database world? We are not a database administrator, we are not a database programmers, we are nowhere related to database. But since the company is working on a huge amount of data and you are the one who is saving and retrieving the data to the database, you need to know few fundamentals about the database. So that's why I have separate slide about talking to database, reading from the database, and some important concepts of the database. And many of the times when you are in interview, people might be asking you a standard question about 4 different properties of the database called ACID properties: atomicity, consistency, isolation, and durability. So if you search online, you will be able to understand what is these 4 keywords about. But you need not be explaining in detail, but you need to know what are those properties and how it works in terms of database. And Java supports, and Java has a framework to support these 4 different properties of the database. And when we talk about the database, how the Java interacts to database is called as JDBC. We have separate API for the JDBC, and Spring has Spring JDBC module. Java database connectivity, how you will connect to database. Previously I told there are 4 different types of statements: prepared, regular statement, prepared statement, callable statements. And you might encounter a question in your interview asking about what is the difference between statement and callable statement, statement and prepared statement and callable statement, or whatever. So you have to learn these things, and you can practice at home in your home computer, and you will be able to answer. Fundamental difference is the statement is the one where you write any regular statement. It can be a select statement, or it can be insert statement, and you can execute. And in terms of prepare statement is the one which will be prepared before you execute the statement. It will you will send that statement to the database engine, and database engine do all the analysis preparation, and it is ready to execute. And you will do this analysis only once, and you might want to execute multiple times. For example, you have a for loop and you want to insert the information of 100 employees. You need not be sending that statement to database 100 times. Database is ready and the statement is pre-compiled, and you will execute 100 times. That is the beauty of prepare statement. If you are trying to execute one single statement, you can either use statement or prepare statement, doesn't really matter. Callable statement is the one where you will call a stored procedure or a function, and if there are any out parameters coming from the callable statement, you have support in Java API. And one other thing, you go to Java API and see this JDBC statement, prepare statement, result set, they are all interfaces. And you are saying we are executing methods on interfaces. This is the place where you will see the runtime polymorphism, where you are executing statements, you are calling methods, invoking methods without creating objects. And who creating those objects and what kind of objects they are? This is the curiosity people might have. You can try in your local machines when you are executing those statements. Before that, try to get the class name. You will be able to know. Those classes are implemented by the JDBC provider. For example, you are connecting to IBM mainframe. That IBM mainframe driver, jar, whatever you are using, the jar is the one who is implementing those interfaces. The important point I mentioned here in triggers. Many of the times when I am taking an interview, I see Java developers writing in their resume, either they say just triggers, otherwise they will say I have developed triggers. It's not the job of a Java developer to write a trigger. So trigger is a Java database object which gets executed on the server side, on the database side. For example, you have insert a row in table A, it has to do some other operation like inserting another audit row in table B, C, which you don't use, you don't see it. Those kind of things are developed and prepared by the database team. Many of the times, 99%, 95% of the times, Java developers don't get into those things. So you need not be writing a keyword called trigger in your resume. You are a Java developer, you stay as a Java developer. That's it. Other databases these days, people are using this NoSQL database like Mongo or Hadoop or Cassandra, or there are many other databases. You need not be expert of those databases, but if you have time at home, if you are learning something, you can download those softwares and install them and practice something and write Java programs to connect to those databases and fetch the data, so that tomorrow in any interview, if someone is asking you, do you know that database, you can say, yes, I did that. You can confidently say, I did that. One other thing important in terms of database is transactions and distributed transactions. There are different types of drivers available in JDBC. One simple driver is going to maintain the transactions within the database, but if you use the different types of drivers, they will be called as XA drivers. So in XA driver, you will be able to maintain the transaction between multiple databases. For example, you have users information in Microsoft SQL Server, and you have regular company transactions in Oracle. You want to maintain the transaction between these two different databases. That is possible using Java language, and Java J2E containers support that. You have to use those distributed drivers, XA drivers. Connection pools and data sources. These are the things we define at J2E container level, or what you call it as the application server level. So it may be a WebLogic, or it may be JBoss, it may be whatever the server you are using. Even if it's a Tomcat, you will be able to create a connection pool and specify how many number of connections you want to maintain, and the database will give you those many connections, and your application server will give you a connection whenever you want to execute a query or whatever. So we need to know what is connection pool, how it can be created, how to get a connection from the connection pool. Those are the basic things you need to know, and how you will define JNDI. Java Naming and Directory Interface, JNDI, is another technology within Java, and which will give you a name to a resource. So you are mapping a resource. It need not be just a database resource. It can be any resource, but here in database terms, we are talking about a data source, and the data source you are going to define at the server level, and at server level you will be able to create a data source, and you access the connections through the data source. One other thing here is there are different relational databases like Oracle, Microsoft SQL, Vertica, Mainframe. These are the 4 or 5 different databases I worked on. What I'm trying to say here is, in the beginning I did not give my introduction. That was my intentionally, I did not do that. Here I'm giving you some background about it. I have worked in different companies. In each company I used these databases. In one of the company it was Oracle, in other companies it was SQL, MySQL, somewhere it was Vertica, somewhere it was mainframes. Within mainframe, again, there are 2 types of mainframe. One is mainframe on mainframe application OS, mainframe on Unix OS. I also worked on Microsoft SQL Server. So what I'm trying to say is, you need not be an expert of all these databases. You work on one of the database, you will be able to work on all others. I have never seen a difficulty working in an environment where the database system is different. For example, Vertica is one database. You might not even heard about it. It's a database from HP company, and in terms of database, what kind of database is, how it is different than other traditional databases is, Most of the traditional databases are relational databases, and on the other end, other extreme, you have these NoSQL databases like Mongo and other databases. But Vertica is one database in between a relational database and in between a warehousing database. Warehousing database like Ab initio. So if you are dealing with a huge amount of data, you will use this HP Vertica. So they were using this database along with the Hadoop, and what kind of data they are going to insert is one of my project where I was working on. It's a advertisement project. If you go to any website, on the left, on the top, on the bottom, somewhere you will see some advertisement is flashing. So and they will show you some product is available or something. So whoever is hosting those advertisements, they want to see how their advertisement is performing. So I was working for AOL. Most of you might know the name of AOL, America Online. It was the most popular internet provider in olden days when this dial-up internet was there. So they have bought a company called advertising.com. So I was working for that project in AOL. They used to receive like 2 to 3 terabytes of data every day, and to maintain the data, to fetch the information, and to provide the analysis of the information, we have worked on an application. The backend was the Vertica. What that application will do is, for example, Macy's is placing an ad. They want to know how their advertisement is performing, how many people viewed it, how many people clicked on it, and how many people bought the product after clicking on it, and what is the age group of the people who viewed it, and from which zip code they are viewing it, and there are a lot of information like male, female, everything is available to the Macy's because they are the one paying the money to place that advertisement online. And we used to provide them different types of analysis in terms of CSV file, in terms of Excel file, in terms of a chart, in terms of pie chart, in terms of graph. All that was provided by AOL. So I worked on the project, and that's why I mentioned one of the database name here as Vertica. It's my personal experience. It is from my one of my previous companies. Other thing we'll see in our experience as Java developer, when you're working in a company, people talk about DML, DDL, store procedure. So you need to know this terminology, because when you are talking to people over the interview, otherwise in your real work, people talk about these things. So what is DML, what is DDL, what is the difference between DML and DDL? It's a data definition language, data modification language. Both are nothing but a SQL actually. But one will create the whole structure of the database, other will do some modifications to the database. And many of the companies will not give you an access for DML, but they will give access to DDL. And in most of the companies, the DBAs are the one who create the stored procedures. But in your resume, if you are really a master at stored procedure, you can write, I know stored procedure, I wrote the stored procedure, but you need not be writing the stored procedure, but you call the stored procedure, you execute the stored procedure as a Java developer. Syntax wise, you need to know the syntax of SQL as a Java developer, and most of the syntax, like 90% of the syntax, is same across the databases. If you know MySQL, you can use it on Microsoft SQL Server or mainframe or Vertica, whatever it is. Functions, sometimes you will write a function, but many of the times you don't write, but you use the function or view in your application. And sometimes you might be writing complex queries which involves case and other things. XML query is one new thing which I have experienced in one of my previous projects, where you receive an XML from your partner and you store that entire XML as a column in your database, and you have to fetch the data based on some of the values inside the XML. So you have to write a query to fetch the data, and the where condition or one of the column in your result is coming from that XML. So that is one complex thing. You have a time, if you are interested, you just learn that and read it online. And one other problem I have seen, many of the times when you go for an interview, people ask, what are the problems did you face in your career, in your previous projects. So here is the live example from my experience I'm giving. We have, first of all, we don't know how to write a XML query, and we don't know that concept exists. So finally, we did some research and we have written XML query to fetch the data from XML, and all that is done, and it was not performing. Then we did some more research to find out that it was not performing because within that XML there has to be an index created. So these are the real-time experiences I have seen. Query for performance, you need not be master of SQL, you need not be doing analysis, but sometimes your manager comes to you and say, whatever the query is written, can you check how it is going to perform in production? So you should know how to do that query performance if you want to. But many of the times the DBS will do, and many of the times in many of the companies, you write the query and send it to your DBA, and they will do all the analysis and they will tell whether that query is going to perform or not. But if you have that kind of a skill, you can say, I have that skill, I'll do it. And you can help the DBA team and you can help the company. Other tools we use in database world, like Toad, you can use SQL Developer for Oracle, or SQL Browser for Microsoft SQL, and there is another product called Rocket Shuttle. It looks like a Eclipse. So these are the different tools available in the market for you to connect to database. And even if you are not a master in the database, you will be able to connect using these tools, and you will be able to see how many tables are there, what are the foreign keys are there, what are the indexes are there. So those are the things you will be able to do. I think this is enough for you as a Java developer to know about the database. If you know more, you can be a DBA or you can be a database programmer expert in databases. So we were continuing from the other technologies. There is a SCA, static code analysis. And in my present company, they are working on a separate team, a separate project called cyber hardening. So the term was really a fancy term for me. I have never heard such a term in my experience. What is cyber hardening of a code, and what is SCA, cyber static code analysis? And there are different tools available in the market like FindBug, CheckStyle, PMD, HP45. There are other different. So what they are doing is, there are so many tools available in the market. You can also download and install and play with them in your local computers, like FindBug, otherwise PMD CheckStyle, otherwise HP45 might be a paid tool, but these are free, FindBug and PMD CheckStyle. What they do is, you have written like thousands of lines of code. You means all your team, like there are 40 developers working and all of them are writing the code and keep pushing the code and goes to production. All of a sudden it might give you problems, and before it goes to production, before it goes to test environment itself, you want to see how that code is going to perform. There are a few checks. Those checks can be done by these softwares. What they do is, inside the code they will see you are trying to use a variable which is right now null, and you did not assign any value to that, and you are trying to use it. So it checks by itself. Before you deploy that code, before you execute that code, you run that tool, it will tell you these are the different places where there is a fair possibility of getting a null pointer exception. Similarly, your company has some standards and best practices. For example, brackets. You are going to use some brackets around if condition, even if there is one single line. Those kind of rules you can define, and you can say they have to be applied to entire code. And when you run these tools, it will tell whether your code is good or not. It's not going to execute the code. It reads line by line. It will tell what are the problems, what are the potential problems exist. And there are other formatter tools also available. One other important concept which might fetch a job these days is web services. So as I said, there is a consortium called W3C, World Wide Web Consortium. And this World Wide Web Consortium, you will be able to go online and see w3c.org. They are the one who define the different internet standards. And one of the internet standard is SOAP, Simple Object Access Protocol. So this SOAP is the protocol defined by W3C consortium, and any company, any language, any technology can implement those protocols. And the protocols defined in SOAP are implemented by Java, and there are so many different companies implemented, and one of them can be a JAX JAX RS JAX RS, and there are others too. And there are two types of web services popular in Java world. One is SOAP web service, the other one is RESTful web service. So olden days, when all these companies were trying to interoperate between each of them, they used to use the SOAP as the standard technology, standard web service. And these days, a lot of companies are using REST web service. The basic difference between SOAP and REST is SOAP is the web service where you will give me a XML request and I will give you an XML response. And within that XML request, there can be a header. Inside the header, you can have authentication information. And in terms of RESTful web service, is nothing but a HTTP protocol, and you are defining a URL, and you are giving some data. It can be a get or post or put or post, and whatever the data the other side they are receiving, they will give you a response. Here again, the response can be an XML or it can be a JSON response. And RESTful web services are popular these days. The reason why they are popular again, because any of these mobile technologies can access the RESTful web service. That is the reason this Angular in the front end and RESTful web services on the back end is the popular combination. And if you know both, there is a fair possibility, 90% of the possibility, you will be easily able to fetch a job. And other thing we'll use in web services is the XSD, XPath, XSL, and all these different terminologies I have written here. XSD is the one where you will define your structure of your object. So company A is developing something and company B is going to use it. Before that company B is going to see the final end product, they can define an XSD and share it with the company B, and when company B sees, they'll say, oh, I was expecting ABCD, but you are giving only ABC, can you add D to that? Before that product is ready, they will see the final outcome of their response. So before your product is ready and tested and getting ready for integration, you will be able to correct the mistakes. That is the importance of this XSD file. XSL is one where you will use some transformations if you want to. SOAP UI and Postman are the two different tools a lot of people are using these days. I have used SOAP UI in multiple places in my company. These are the tools you can download. Postman, I think it's a extension to Chrome, but SOAP UI is a downloadable software you can download, and if you have developed a web service, you want to test it, how it is working, you can test without doing any integration, without developing a front end. So that is one. Other technologies in terms of web services are the ESB, Enterprise Service Bus. So I was discussing with Davos yesterday, you can make a career, you can fetch a job just by learning what is ESB. You have to be master of ESB. You know in and out of ESB. You need not be a Java expert. You can learn. You can join a company as an ESB expert. We have used this IBM Data Power, and in current company we are using Mule. Mule is a software ESB, and Data Power is a combination of software and hardware. So IBM is the one who developed this Data Power. They have other applications too, like API management, IBM API management, and other applications. But Data Power is the one which is ESB. What ESB does, what this Enterprise Service Bus does is, you have a company and that company is consuming n number of different web services they are consuming, and the company developed another n number of web services which are provided. So you are providing a service, someone is consuming, and someone is providing a service and you are consuming. So these interaction will happen through the data power. Data power is like a gateway. It's like a watchman in your building. Whoever comes, that watchman knows. Watchman will write, okay, someone came, someone went. He came at 9 o'clock and he went at 9:15. So you will have all the log. This service request came and that resulted into a 200 OK response. Otherwise, there was a 404 error, 503 error, 4. All these things will be recorded at data power level. Other than that, ESB can also transform the data. For example, you are sending ABC, but other side has to see something else. That can be done at the data power level. It can also throttle the request. For example, you are sending like, you are expecting 10 requests per second, but someone is trying to hack your system and they are sending like 100 requests per second. You can reject all of them. Only 10 will be accepted. So a lot of things the data power or ESB can do, and if you become an expert of that, you can fetch a job. You need not be a Java developer, but you can fetch a job in that ESB itself. And in my previous company, we have a separate team working out of this ESB. Their whole job is to install, maintain, upgrade, and configure. That's all they do in ESB. One other for development is this distributed messaging. We used to use IBM queues, MQ, and there is a tool called Nastel Technologies. We used to use that to see how the queues are configured, what are the parameters configured, how many messages are waiting in the queue, how many processed, what kind of message is waiting. All these things we will be able to see using a Nastel tool. And it's an IBM MQ we were using, but there are so many different other technologies each company might be using. But you need to know the basics. You have a job, you are just Java developer, and you are pushing the messages to the queue. You are fetching the messages from the queue. You need to know the basics, and you can write small programs, and you can do some practice at home if you have access to those things. And in terms of technology, this RabbitMQ is another competitor of IBM MQ, and Kafka is there. There are many others, but in many of the times in your job requirements, someone might be asking you, do you know these things? You can say, if you do some practice, you can say, yes, I know that. These days, many of the companies are talking about test-driven development. So what is test-driven development is you have written a code. Before it goes to a tester, before it goes to production, before it goes to UAT, you want to do the testing. For example, you have written a controller class, you have written a service class, you have written a database access class, you have written some utility class. All of them have to be individually tested before it gets to an integration testing. So to do that, you have to write a JUnit program for unit testing. And there is another concept these days called code coverage. So if you have written 1,000 lines of code, all those 1,000 lines have to be tested in unit testing. If that is not done, these days we have softwares. The software will tell how much of code is already tested, how much of code is not tested, how much of code is testable, how much of code is not testable. So companies will install those softwares, buy those software, and see how the developers are performing and how the code is tested or not tested. If it is tested, whether it is test passed or failed. So I'll come to more about this in next slides, but basic idea is every line of the code, whatever you have written, has to be unit tested. That is the idea in the companies. In that, they are using this terminology called code coverage. So many of the times what happens is, if you have written, for example, you have written a utility class, you can just test it. You have written a controller, you can send some dummy information and test it. What if you have a backend application? For example, you are connecting to database and fetching the data. You don't have a real database to fetch the data. So what they are doing is, there is a database called H2DB, and this H2DB, I have given that URL also here. You can go to that website and see. It's an in-memory database. What happens is, at runtime, it creates the tables, it inserts some test data, then you will run your tests to make sure you are able to connect to database, you are able to fetch the data, and whatever the data you are expecting, if you are expecting 2 rows, there have to be 2 rows returning it. All this can be done while your JUnit test is running. So on the fly, it creates a database, it creates the tables, inserts the data. You will test your application written by you using GP or Hibernate or whatever the technologies you are using, and test it. So that's the thing we are using in companies. Next is performance tools. So when you work in a company, sometimes based on type of company and number of people working in a company, they might say, can you download a JMeter, or they have some commercially available softwares like LoadRunner or NeoLoad or any other. These are the tools I have used, that's why I listed here. So these are the performance testing tools, and companies might ask you to do some basic level of performance testing. If there is a big company, they might have a separate team to do the performance testing. Sometimes what happens is, even if you have a separate team for performance testing, they might come to you and say, this code is not performing. You should be able to know some basics of this performance testing so that you can go back and see whether the guy is telling is real or he himself don't know. There is a possibility it happens sometimes. So you need to know how your code is performing. For example, 1,000 users are trying to access your web service, whether it is returning the response in 3 seconds or 300 seconds. That kind of a test you have to do. The other tools you might use in companies are this Optimize It, GC Analysis, and Load Balancer. These are the different applications, tools we use in companies. For example, if I say Optimize It, what happens is you have written a code and it is not performing. And someone came to you and he's saying, this code is not performing. Can you tell me why? You yourself don't know, because it's a long code and you have written a big application and now it is giving trouble. So if you use these kind of tools, for example, this Optimize It Profiler, it runs the profiler and it will tell you in which line, in which class, in which method there is a bad code which is consuming a lot of time. Many of the times your code is not going to perform, it's not going to give the response because you have a bad query or database returning the response in long time. If that is the case, DBS will catch and they will tell. But if there is bad code, you have written some code which is giving you a trouble, it's not easy for you yourself to find out, but you need some help in terms of tools. So you can use this Optimize It Profiler tool to run all your code and see where it is choking, in which method, in which class it is choking. You will be able to do that. Monitoring is the other thing. If you are working in a company, if you have joined a company like me, I recently joined a company, and on day one they put me on production support. Production support means you have to be an expert in the whole application, but I'm new and I'm learning, but at the same time I need to do what they are expecting from me. I have to perform there. So they are using tools like this. In my previous company, we used to use ServiceStar and HP tools, and in this company they are using Splunk, and there are many other monitoring tools. So what is actually monitoring is, you have deployed your application in production and all of a sudden it goes down and no one knows. That's why companies are spending money to buy the tools which will always look at your application. It looks at the database, it see whether the database is up or not, and whether the database is responding in those specified number of milliseconds or not. So for every few seconds or a minute, it makes a call to database and see how is the response. Similarly, it will check how much CPU is used on those boxes. It will check whether the network is active and healthy or not. It will check all your Tomcat boxes, Apache boxes are returning the response within the specified time or not. For example, the response has to come in 500 milliseconds, but it is taking 600. So before it reaches the threshold time, it will give you an alert in terms of an email saying that this particular application is not responding. So before your customers complain, you will be able to take the corrective action. So these are the different tools I have used in my previous career, but there may be many more available in the market. you as a Java developer, you need not be master of these tools, but if you know about them, if you learn something, good for you. Build. So build, DevOps, PVCs, whatever those five bullet points I have listed there, they are all related with each other. These days, in many of the job requirements, job postings, you might have seen people are talking about DevOps, right? What is actually DevOps, right? Earlier, there used to be two separate departments called Development Department, Operations Department. They are trying to bring these two departments together onto one single umbrella. That umbrella is DevOps, Development and Operations both. And there used to be, in operation department, there used to be a department called CM, Configuration Management Department, and there was a separate manager, a separate team. And going forward, they are trying to bring them together, because if there is a problem, you cannot say, oh, that team did a mistake, not me. You cannot do that, because everyone is employee of the company and everyone is trying to make sure the product what we are developing is successful. So in that concept, we used to have build tools called Ant before. These days, everyone is using Maven. Basic difference between Ant and Maven is Ant will make a build and create the final distributable. It can be a jar or ER. For that, you need to download all your third-party libraries and keep them local. And Maven gets runtime on when you are trying to make a build. If those libraries are not available, you can download those libraries and make a build for you. That's the difference between Ant and Maven. And in terms of DevOps and CI/CD, CI/CD is another keyword in DevOps world, continuous integration and continuous delivery. So what they are doing is, you have made a change to the code and you committed the code. You might be committing the code to PVCS or SVN or CVS or Git, whatever the thing it is. You committed the code, immediately there will be a script. The script might be written in Groovy, it might be written in Python, it might be written in any other language. It will fetch the code from the system, and there are two ways you can configure. One is it has to make a build immediately when you commit the file, or you can configure it to make a build for every half an hour or something. So for example, you have created a configuration every half an hour it wakes up using a Cron shell script, and it will go there and fetch the data, fetch the files from the system, PVCS or SVN, source control system, and from there it will see if there is any new code. It makes a build. When the build is done, it will run the JUnit. If the JUnit is successful, it can run any automation test scripts are there, and if everything is done, it can deploy. So these are the different steps it can do. So that is the reason these days these tools are popular, and you as a Java developer need to know some basics of these concepts, so that when you are going for an interview, people might ask you, do you know what is DevOps, and did you work in DevOps environment? What are the basics of DevOps? And if there is any problem in DevOps, will you be able to help figuring out and troubleshooting them? Because it's not expected from you as a Java developer to be an expert of DevOps, but you need to know some basics of DevOps. So these days, in many of the job requirements, you will see a guy who need to know something about the DevOps. They will get a chance to fetch a job. And there are other tools people are using these days. In my previous company, we used to use Jenkins, and in my current company, we are using this Bamboo. And other tools they are using is Puppet and Chef. Those are to create the environments on the fly. There are different scripting languages they are using behind the scenes is the Shell scripts, Groovy scripts, and Python scripts. So these are the things. If you have time, download those things, search online, and try to figure out. One other thing I mentioned here is a test automation. You as a Java developer need not be an automation expert, but some of the companies, maybe 10 to 20% of the companies, are expecting Java developers to write the automation test cases and automation test scripts. What this automation does is, when your application is ready, when your application is deployed to your test environment, immediately it will run these automation test cases. It may be a regression test case, it may be a smoke test, it may be integration test, whatever the label you have, it will do those tests and it will send an email alert saying that, oh, recent build, someone committed a file at 11 o'clock and 2 o'clock build failed because the test automation failed. Otherwise, JUnit failed. Otherwise, PMD check style failed. So whatever the level it failed, it sends an email alert saying that someone has to go back and correct because it happened due to someone committed a file at 11 o'clock. And we know who committed it. These are the different tools people are using. Other tools people are using in these Java environments are the rules engines, rules, ilog rules, Pega, JS. Again, here you need not be an expert of those rules engines, but you need to know some basics if your company is using. And if you know any of these rules engines, there is a fair possibility of getting a job. One of the jobs like 5 years ago, I got selected just because I know rules. That's it. And in my other previous company, they used to use this Pega. There is a separate team to work on Pega itself. And Pega has backend. It uses Java. And if you are a Pega master, there is a fair possibility of getting a high pay than Java developer. So these are the special tools. If you know, that is good. You need not be master about it. But if you have time, if you're looking for a job, and if you want to explore something, you can explore something. Workflow engines, like rules engines, there are workflow engines. So there is a business process engine, BPM engines. So some of the companies are using, not all the companies, and depending upon their requirements. Similarly, in the beginning itself, we were talking about Java is popular, why it is popular, right? The advantage of Java is it can connect to SAP, it can connect to PeopleSoft, it can connect to Oracle Financials, it can connect to many other such systems. So that is one of the reasons Java is popular. So Java can connect to these all ERP systems. Java developer need not know about these ERP systems, but you need to interface. If a company is using those softwares, you might be interfacing those applications in your company. As I said, there is a Vertica, Ab Initio, Informatica, Teradata, and other things. So in this list, from first two I worked on, Vertica and Ab Initio. In my previous company, our partner was using Ab Initio, and what they did is they have called Ab Initio experts, and those Ab Initio experts have given us a WAR file. We have deployed that WAR file in our environment, and that WAR file will interact with Ab Initio, and we will interact to that WAR file and make a call to Ab Initio and fetch the data. And that Ab Initio is actually a data warehousing tool, and whatever the software we were using, it's an interface to Ab Initio, and we are interacting with that interface. So it's one kind of interesting thing. But what I'm trying to mention here in my slide is these are the different technologies Java can interact with, and I have seen in my experience how it works. The reporting tools, there are so many different reporting tools. So I have used here OBIE, SSRS, and Actuate, Jasper, like 4 or 5 different tools out of this list I have used in my previous companies. I means I'm not expert of that, but I have connected to them, and there were any problems, we did the troubleshooting together with the experts of those tools. Bottom line is these all tools will give you an interface. It can be a WAR file or it can be a web service endpoint. You should be able to connect to them and fetch the data, and if there are problems, you should be able to do the troubleshooting. Again, this is the advantage of Java. It can interact with so many different tools and technologies, and if you know any of them, basics of them, good for you. Next, if we go to okay, now we are going deeper into jobs, learning the technology. I want to give you a website. I can minimize this window, right? Yeah. I will show you a website here. I don't know how many of you have already seen this website, but this is one important website for people who are working in IT field. Whenever you have some time, go to this website, and in this website there is a sub URL called radar. In this radar you will see a update for every like 2 months or 3 months, or frequently they will update. And there are 4 different areas they are talking about in this website. There are techniques, there are tools, there are languages, and there are platforms. You can explore all those 4 areas. Let's see how they are talking about languages here, language and frameworks. Within this language and frameworks, if you see, there are 4 different circles. The innermost circle is talking about 77, which is Python, and the middle circle is talking about Angular, AssertJ, Avro, Spring Cloud, and all this 78 to 85. The outer circle is talking about assets. Hold is talking about right now there's nothing, but something comes up tomorrow. Whenever they will come, they will come. What I'm trying to show on this website is, whenever you want to learn something new and you want to know the future. So I know about this website like 4 or 5 years ago, but I did not realize the importance of this website and power of this website. In my personal experience, what happened is, like 4 years ago, I saw something and I ignored it. That is my mistake, and I have paid a lot of big price of it. So I would have learned it, but I did not. Now in 2017, 2018, I am realizing 3 years ago whatever I saw was real. It's not just fake or something. And now if you see here in 77, they are talking about Python is the technology. Python 3 is the version which is adopted by the industry. The software industry is using Python already, and it's a Python 3. And if you learn it, you will gain knowledge, you will retain your job, otherwise you will get a new job easily. If you don't, then it's your mistake. So once in a while, come to this website and see what new technologies are coming up in the market in 2020, 25, or whatever. In future, these are the trends going on, and they will move these numbers from inside to outside, outside to inside, based on how it is working. And this website gives you a real insight into technologies. When you say trial means companies are doing the trial, like proof of concept kind of a thing. Companies are exploring those technologies, and there is a fair possibility companies start using those technologies. Assess means some of people are trying to assess whether they are going to use it or not. We are not sure. So this is a real good website where you have 4 different types of technologies, and there are 4 different type of circles: inner circle and outer circle and middle circles. Going back to my slide, I was here. Right, here we are. So to learn the technology, go to this website. If you know everything in Java, then go to website. If you don't know Java, then better to go back to Java and learn Java first. And if you don't want to be in Java, you want to move out of Java, then again go back to that website and learn something from that website. Next, coming to the searching of a job. How are we going to search for a job? Normally, 99% of the time, we go to a jobs portal, search for a job, apply for a job. The other way of searching for a job is asking your friends, do we have any jobs in your company? Can you refer me? The other way of searching for a job is coming to a ALMPG, sending an email saying that I am looking for a job, I am desperate for a job, and these are my skills. Can someone tell me if you have any job referral? One other way of getting to a job is certification. So that's why in the beginning I have given a heading saying that do the parallel process here. Learn the technology every day, a small list. I have given so many technologies in my PowerPoint slides. Pick something, whatever you want, learn. So in 1 week, 5 days, you will be learning one single technology or 5 different technology, but learn something. Number 1. Number 2 is searching for a job. Keep searching for a job. At the same time, you are learning for a job, learning for a technology. The third thing is the certification. If you are a fresher, if you are experienced, having a certification is a good plus point. But if you are a fresher and you want to prove yourself, who you are, what kind of expertise you have, you will be able to show your expertise. If you, that's again, I'm going to give you my personal experience. In 2003, I was trying to change the employer. That employer know me very well for a long time, but he said, I'm going to file your H1 only if you get this certification done. So I did whatever the research I can online and other places, and my employer also provided me a software. He bought the software for his employees, and I did my Java programmer certification. When I did my Java programmer certification, he got a confidence, okay, this guy can do something. Then he said, can you do one more certification? I said, of course. Then he paid my certification fees from his credit card, because first certification was cleared and he got a confidence in me. Second certification, before even filing my H1, he paid the fees. So certification is the one which might fetch a job for you, and you will be able to prove who you are, especially when you are a fresher, when you have a less number of years of experience and you are not good at all the technologies. You will be able to show you have something in you by showing the certification. So certification is one good thing you can have. And one other advantage of certification is you will be able to learn the language in depth. To write the certification, for example, because I am a Java developer, I'm talking about Java development, you know a lot of things when you are trying to do some practice to get the certification. Two ways people get the certification. One is you keep reading books or websites or online resources or PDF files. One way of getting the certification. The other way of getting the certification is for every line you read, write a small program. For example, inner class, for example, static variable, for example, transient variable. Write a small 4 lines or 6 lines of program. There you will learn something, the technology, but at the same time you are preparing for the certification. So these are the 3 different things. Do parallelly while searching a job, learn something technology and write certification. That is the best way of utilizing your time if you are looking for a job as fresher. Coming to jobs,
brother Fasi, I would quickly like to add something here. I have a some experience in kind of tip. Most of the time, the biggest mistake we do is, if we are looking for a job, we just look at only on the job website or job portal or depend on employer. But we know the fact that 60% of the jobs, they never come out. They are filled in by the referral position inside the company. Yeah. So we feel shy to ask our friends, to ask our family members. But that should not be the case while you are searching for a job. I am telling you, most of the jobs get filled in because they are internally open. So what I suggest, if you are in a job market looking for a job, don't feel shy about it. Ask your friends, ask your family member, ask your community, make connections. That's where we are lagging behind, We don't want to make connection. We want to be separate from the world, get a job, find a job. No, that is not possible. Make connections. This is my personal experience. I believe Brother Fasi will also agree with it. I'm telling you, this is what Brother Fasi did. When he was finding a new job, he called everybody. I believe he called all his contacts and he asked them. And alhamdulillah, that works. And when I was looking for a job, my second approach was first apply through the job portal, and my second approach was get in touch with all my contacts. Tell them, okay, brothers, I am out of job. I'm looking for opportunity. This is my skill set. Create a small WhatsApp message and send it to everybody. At least they will have you in their mindset. And you never know when the opportunity pops up in their company, they're going to just let you know, hey, there is an opportunity in my company. Why don't you apply? Put in my company ID or, my email address. So, just don't overlook that. That is very important. Don't feel shy about it. Everybody goes through this phase. Everybody needs a job, and everybody tries to search it up. And you're not going to be small, or you're not going to be big asking people. So that is kind of a little bit I want to add there while searching the job. Jazakallah khair, Brother Fasi. Please continue.
Yeah, well, that's right. After having those many, like, I have been in this industry since 95, 97, 98, and in 2017, when I lost my job, my contract was ended. So I have sent email to whoever I know. Everyone, I was searching in my mailbox for people and keep sending email saying that right now I am looking for a job. If you have something in your company, let me know. If you have any referral, let me know. It's not like, oh, I was looking for this place, this place. No, no. I have done whatever I can to fetch a next job. So that's how your approach has to be in job search. So going back to my slide here, next thing I was trying to say is there are different types of jobs available. Never ever think that if you are a Java developer, you can be just a Java developer. You can move around and you can still stay in touch with Java. So the first thing is the server administrators. In every company there are servers, WebLogic, WebSphere, Tomcat, whatever, and they need people to maintain those boxes. So they have to install those softwares, they have to upgrade those softwares, they have to see that software is working fine. There are database connections, there are connection issues, there are MQs you have to create. So many things you will do on the server. So you can be a server administrator, and a lot of people are getting their bread and butter out of their company as a server administrator. One kind of a job. The other job is people who know big data or Hadoop. They need to know a little bit of Java and they can survive in that particular field. The other way people are getting jobs these days is you are a tester. In olden days, tester means just a tester. Now testers are programmers again. So if you have a experience in testing field in previously, try to learn Java and try to learn the Selenium and other technologies. Uh, you will be able to get a job and you will be able to stay in the job. I have worked in a company. They have asked me to work on automation, and I am Java developer, but I was still working on that automation too. There is an automation team, and they don't know Java, so I was helping them. In that way, I am telling you can be a Java developer and helping the testers. Otherwise, you can be a tester and learning Java and doing the programming for automation. And automation programmers are getting competitive pay like any Java developer. The other Java development field is Java web development, where you have JSP, JSF, servlets, struts, Spring, and any other such technologies, where you will be able to get a job. Especially the Angular is the one which is getting popularity these days. So that is one thing. The thick client is, as I was saying in the beginning, NetBeans is one application, IntelliJ is other application, Eclipse is other application. These all applications are developed in Java itself. And there are so many different call centers. They don't use browser-based applications, but they will use an installed application using AWT or Swing kind of application, and they are thick clients. These kind of applications are rare these days in the market, but if you are expert in that, there are so many companies willing to hire you as an expert of UI, because it's very rare technology and people are not willing to get into that field. But if you know that technology, there is a possibility of getting a job too. J2ME is the one, Java Mobile Edition. It is used in phone, and people are developing any applications using J2ME, they can get a job. Other field which most of the people ignore and they don't know about it is going forward. We are talking about Internet of Things, IoT. So for example, you have a fridge at home, you have AC at home, and you are sitting in office and you want to see what is the temperature right now in my home, whether my fridge is working or not, my AC is working or not, what is the heat right now. All these things you will be able to do because there is a JVM burned installed into a chip, and it is installed onto those hardware, and you will be able to interact through a Java technology because you have a JVM installed in that device. This is the future. So that is one other field where people might have a lot of jobs. The last thing what I mentioned is the hot topic is as of today. You will get many of the job openings where they say they need someone full stack Java developer. What is full stack means is you will be able to work in front end as well as in the back end. So if you know Java end to end, also you will be able to interact with these all JavaScript frameworks like Angular. You have a lot of jobs. That is a hot topic, and definitely there is a fair possibility of fetching a job if you claim yourself as a full stack developer. One other thing I'm trying to say is there are so many different types of roles. A lot of times what happens is we I get many of the calls, and I talk to many of the people. People say that, oh, my employer is asking me to write 8 years of experience, then only you will be receiving a call. 10 years of experience, then only you will be receiving a call. But how you will justify? If you write 10, 15 years of experience, the person who is taking your interview will expect you to be performing in interview and after the interview as that kind of experienced person. So if you think you are not that particular, those many years of experience you don't really have, you cannot justify, you can claim yourself as a junior Java developer. Don't claim as a senior Java developer. And if you think you will be able to manage multiple people and mentor people and help people and advise people, you can be a lead developer. Lead developers most of the times don't get a time to write the code, but they are the ones who will see how your application is working, how many components are there, how they are integrated with each other. They are kind of a junior architect and junior manager, so they will take care of the developers, their problems, and at the same time they will give you advice. If you are stuck, they will give you a help, lending hand. So these are the different parameters you will see in a lead developer. The highest level of Java technology, you are still in the technology, but you are working as a senior, is a Java architect. It can be a solution architect, it can be an enterprise architect, a chief architect, whatever. At that time, you will be defining how your company has to interact with other companies and how the other companies have to interact with you, sending a file, making a web service call, otherwise going through a MQ, so many different ways. So you will see a big picture and you will define a big picture, and if something going wrong, you will step in and say, this is the place which is giving you a problem. That is the level of architect. So you define what you want and prepare your resume in such format. So coming to resume here, the importance of resume is...
If you can give me 1 minute. Assalamu alaikum, brother. I know that we have passed the time, our 2.5 hour deadline. So let's continue for half an hour more. Inshallah, we are at the end of the session. Inshallah, we can then take the quick Q&A and we can end up the session. I know you guys are being eager. So inshallah, let's bear half an hour more. We have a lot to cover. Alhamdulillah, you actually, to be very frank, you don't get this knowledge from anywhere. No job portal, no website can provide you the knowledge which Brother Fasih is sharing. So I want to keep it going. As we have him here, tomorrow he might be busy. So let's make use of time, inshallah. Jazakallah khair, Brother Fasih. Please continue.
Right. So sorry for the delay. I'm taking too much time, but
no problem. Wallahi, I am telling you guys, you will not get this knowledge what he has. What he is sharing, he is not just sharing from a point of view of an individual developer. He is sharing from a point of view of an architect and somebody who has a 20 years of broad-minded experience. What you guys are learning, if you are freshers, is that you are going through a narrow path. But what he is sharing it from the broad mind, broad perspective. So inshallah, this will help you guys grow in future also. You will know, okay, you are here now, where you have to move now. So this will help you. This will encourage you, all of you, no matter where you are coming from, what sect, religion, whatever you. This is a platform for you to get educated. So inshallah, I hope this session will open up your mind and make you not just a follower but a leader who can lead the coming generations, inshallah. So jazakallah khair. Please continue.
So next thing I was trying to say is about resume. As I said in the beginning, I have been part of so many job searches. So I have seen people sending their resume to me as a interviewer. I was taking the interview in different companies, and other thing is I used to work through the preferred vendors, and they want to screen before they send the resume to the client. So I have seen different types of resume. A lot of people think resume has to be only 2 pages or 4 pages or whatever. That's not right. You can send whatever the resume you want as long as that resume has useful information. It's not junk, because resume is one important document you are sending, and based on that resume people are going to decide they want to pursue further or stop it there. So you have to make sure so many things when you are writing a resume. I have some online documents which I share later, but in those documents I have collected a lot of information about writing a resume and attending the interviews. There are online Java Google Docs, so you can read it whenever you have time. I'm going to share. So what I was trying to say is the importance of a resume is it's an important document. It can be 2 pages or 6 pages. That's not a problem. But you write whatever is relevant, whatever is important, whatever you want to convey. Number one. Number two is you write a resume with proper format. If you have bullet points, they are all aligned or not. If they have a font, that font is a good font. Don't use any colors when you are sending a resume to a vendor or a recruiter or a client. Don't expect them to have a color printer and they print a resume in colors. No, don't use any color, just black and white. The technologies wise, I'm going to say is a lot of people say, a lot of people mean the vendors or recruiters, when they say they'll call, oh, I'm trying to find this particular technology in your resume, I don't see it, so I'm going to reject. So they may outright reject, otherwise they may come back to you and say, can you add that? Don't add if you're not comfortable. Just one single offer is not everything. Just lose that offer that is good for you. And in your heart you might feel, I'm losing this offer, and you might learn the technology tomorrow just because you're feeling that. Otherwise, just ignore. Don't keep writing, keep adding technologies just because someone is asking you to add the technology. And if someone is calling you, try to explain them and understand from your perspective. For example, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, someone called me and they said, I'm looking for a technology called JSCP. I said, what is JSCP? He was looking for Sun certified Java programmer, Java certified programmer something, JCP or something. Then I said, first line of my resume says I am a Java certified programmer. Oh, I realized that because that particular recruiter is not a professional like me, and they are doing their job to earn some money, and they are sitting in that position, and they are deciding your future. And sometimes you need to educate them. That is important. Similarly, the technologies and projects. When you are writing a project, you should be in a position to explain. So you don't write like 10-15 lines in terms of project description. Write like 2-3 lines of a description, what the project is, what it does, and those 2-3 lines have to be functional. You need not be writing, okay, my project makes a web service call to company B sends a response to me, and that response comes in a JSON format. Don't write any technical details in your project description. Project description has to be functional, it has to be short, precise, and the person who is reading the resume, the project description has to tell what that project does, and you will definitely get an opportunity during the interview to explain what that project is. At that time you show your expertise and spend the time to explain what your project is, and you should be able to convince the person who is making you a call, otherwise face-to-face interview, you are the one who worked on that project for sure. Roles. In roles section, you have to specify what technologies did you use. For example, you will write, okay, I used JSP, I used Struts, I used no. You have to say what did you do. You have used a web service to interact with the client and do this kind of transaction. You have used JSP to show these files in your front end. You have used Angular to make it responsive. So that kind of a description you have to specify for each of those technologies when you're writing the roles. Number of pages, as I said, it doesn't really matter. I have seen resume of all the sizes, and 2 pages resumes got rejected and 10 pages resume got selected. So don't worry about number of pages as long as it has relevant information, useful information, not the junk. Other general tips, as I said, they have Google Docs I created, which I share here. One other thing about the interview is when you get a call, all those calls might not be coming from the client. For example, I was searching for a job from November to December, 2 months. I have received like 500, 800 calls. Out of this, maybe 6 or 7 are coming from client. All others are from recruiters, vendors, and other people. There you have to show your communication skills. That is really important. So when you are talking to these people, you have to have a firm negotiation in terms of salary. I'm giving you my personal experience. In 2003, I have given an interview. Someone called me and they said, I have a job and do you want to go? I said yes. Finally, everything is done. At that time, I was unaware of anything. I'm giving you a personal experience. It's a blunder I'm giving you here. It's a real first-hand experience. I'm not giving you a story. So what happened is he called me and interview is done. Everything, I got selected. Then they said, okay, join. When I was trying to book a flight ticket, the location was South Dakota, and I was thinking South Dakota is near Texas. It's not. South Dakota is extreme north in the border of Canada, and there it is cold, like 20 inches of snow you will see normally, and I went there for $35 an hour. It was a fun part, but it's a real experience, and I'm trying to give you my experience. I'm sharing that experience. It's a blunder, but you need to know where you are going, to which city you are going, and what is the cost of living in that location. And the best place to look for cost of living is look for these online resources, especially if you want to see the house rent, room rent, and those things. You can see these Craigslist and other places where you will be able to find how that place is, how costly that place is. So I did another blunder, which I'm going to give you example here. I was coming from South Dakota, the project is over, and someone called me and saying that we have a job in Washington, D.C. I said, okay, fine. From South Dakota to Washington, D.C., I saw a pay rate hike, then I jumped on it. After coming here, I understood the one-bedroom apartment rent in South Dakota was $400, and here it is $1,100-$1,200 at that time. It was 2005, 2004 time. So you need to know from which location to which location you are moving, what is the cost of living, and you have to be firm in terms of money, because that is the only source you have to live in this country. You don't have a lot of money so that you enjoy here. You will be able to survive only if you get consistent pay, which is sufficient for your family. And also you need to understand you have n number of years of experience. That's why that salary or that job is offered to you. So you need to know what you are worth of. You have to be a salesman here, which I'm trying to emphasize. The other thing I'm trying to say is these days what is happening is people are asking you to come for a personal interview. Recently I did that in December 2017. Someone asked me to come with a laptop. So I went there. 4 people are sitting around me. Someone is an architect, someone is a manager, someone is some other job, and they connected my laptop to their projector and they are saying write a code now. So you have to be prepared for such a test. So if someone is asking, you cannot say no. You have to be prepared to write a code, whatever the smallest code. You are not going to write 500 lines of code in front of 4 people in half an hour, right? So write small programs at home. That will be your best bet. So if you have that kind of practice at home, you won't feel shy about it. You will say, why not? I'm going to write the code in front of you. And there are so many vendors, they don't have trust on our people. So what they are doing is they are sending you a link, and that link says, okay, write the code for this particular scenario and send it in half an hour. So 4 o'clock they will send you an email, 6 o'clock they are expecting a response. You should be ready to write those kind of code exercises. And time-based test they are giving, they are saying this is the link, go to this link and complete the test. Otherwise someone is saying come to my office. When you go there, he's a non-technical guy, but he has a paper. You have to finish that paper in 15 minutes and give it back to him. And they already have a key for that question paper. And based on that, they will decide whether they want to forward your resume further or they want to stop it there. So there are code exercises, there are online tests. Coming back to the interview over phone, interview over Skype, interview in person. Some of you might have received one joke kind of video where a guy was trying to give an interview over Skype and someone else is giving the interview in the back end and he got caught red-handed. Never do that. People are asking you to come on Skype because they don't trust you. So keep the trust alive so that in future your juniors will get a job. Similarly, phone interview, never try to use any proxy. A lot of people come to me and say, there is an interview, can you work as a proxy for me? No, never do that. That's the bad thing anyone is doing. One final thing is in-person interview. I took one interview around 4 years ago. What happened is my senior, my colleague, he took the interview over the phone and he selected the guy, and he was living in Florida and we are having office in Washington DC, and he took a flight and came to Washington DC and came for in-person interview. And me and other two my colleagues, they were sitting and we asked her a few basic questions and he was not able to answer any of them. And why he is coming from Florida by flying? Because his interview over the phone was good. Someone else was giving an interview for him, and when he came in person, he was not able to perform. So these are the things which we have seen in our so many years of experience, how the things are working. So I'm trying to educate you and be proactive, learn the technology, and when you are giving an interview, your confidence speaks. Whether you are telling whatever the answers you have, are you giving confidence with confidence or without any confidence? That's important. And when you are done with your interview, it may be phone, it may be in person, come back and note down what are the things you did good and what are the things you did bad. And if there was a question and you are not able to answer that question, try to note down and search online and find out the answers. One other thing you can do is you can share with other people who are looking for a job. See, this was the question they asked and I was not able to answer. It's okay. It's not like a real big thing. You did not answer that question is not a crime. So you can share with your experience, that experience with others. As Downside toward finding a job, there are so many different resources you can do. For example, you go to a company website and see there is a job opening. You can apply that website itself. The other way of searching for a job is you can get help from recruiters. If you know any recruiters, you can just send an email saying that I am looking for a job. This is my expertise. The other way of searching for a job is there are so many job portals like Monster, Indeed, Dice. These are the 3 job portals which I have been using for last 15 years, and you just upload your profile and people call you, and from there you can move forward. One other difference between a lot of people and me is I don't upload my entire resume to these websites, because if you upload the resume, someone might download and copy, which I want to avoid. So what I do is I'll say I have these many years of experience, I have worked at these many companies, and I know these technologies. After that, if you really want a detailed resume, I will send it by mail. You contact me. LinkedIn, earlier I was not on LinkedIn, but recently maybe 3-4 years ago, I joined LinkedIn. It's really a useful place for you to find a job, number 1. Number 2, make a connection with other professionals. And number 3 is it will give you a opportunity of verification. For example, I have worked in A, B, C, D companies, and when you go to my LinkedIn profile, you will see the people who worked in those companies as my connection. That gives you a authentic information when I say I'm not bluffing. For example, I work in company A, I have 4 connections from company A, that means I'm authentic. I'm not bluffing, I'm not giving some false information, right? ALMPG is one platform where you will be able to search other recruiters, other Java developers, or anything, whatever the help you want. Even for room search also, ALMPG is the one place where you will be able to get the help. I created a Google group for only Java developers so that I'm not going to disturb the entire ALMPG membership, like 5,000 members, more than 5,000 members. I'm not going to send one email to all of them and disturb them. So what I'm doing is, whenever I receive a job opening from recruiters, I'm sending a email, that exact same email I'm forwarding to this Muslim Java Professionals group. That group I created just because I thought of helping few other people. 2 things you can do. When you receive my email on Java Muslim Professionals, Muslim Java Professionals group, either you directly apply for a job if you are eligible. The second thing you can do is note down the email address and the phone number of that particular recruiter, and you can contact after 3 months, after 6 months, whenever you are ready. Number 3, what you can do is, if you are already ready but the job requirement is different and your profile is different, you can contact them and say, I'm looking for a job. Do you have any opening? I'm not eligible for this particular job, but you might have something else. So these are the different ways this group is useful. I don't know how many people are really using for that purpose or not, but that is the whole idea of creating that group, and I'm sending whatever the job opening I'll get in my inbox. Alhamdulillah, I'll get like 10 to 15 almost every day, especially when I was looking actively for a job. One other thing is, as Daud said, referrals. So if you have contact with other Java professionals, they might give you a referral saying that, oh, in my company there is a Java opening, why don't I apply for you? That other way you will be able to speed up the process. One simple example I'm trying to give here is, like 2-3 days back, a friend, I know him very well, he is a business intelligence developer or something, BI. So he contacted me saying that in my previous office there is a job. I said, okay, fine. He said, do you know anyone in that office? I said, I know a lot of people, maybe 50 people I know there. Then he said, I asked him, which company are you working with? He gave me some XYZ company name. I have never heard that company name. Then I told him, why don't you go with a preferred vendor, the prime vendor? Because for that particular company, I know all the prime vendors, I have their phone numbers, I have their email addresses. Here, what I'm trying to tell in the whole concept, this context is, if that guy, the BI guy, if he's going through that particular recruiter, he might have received like $70 an hour, but if he's going through prime vendor, he might be getting $90 an hour. This $20 difference is a advantage, number one. If this BI developer is working for that company, just think about, he's working for 5 years. 5 years multiplied by 2,000 hours each year multiplied by $20 is a big amount. So it's always good to make connections with people and tell the people what you are going through. They might help you. If they don't have, that is fine. It's not like a crime to contact someone if they cannot help you. We don't know who is going to help, right? And whenever you receive a call, we don't know which call is really important. One day what happened is, I went to some grocery shop. On the way I'm coming with my family, all of a sudden a lady called me, and I was talking on the phone while driving. And finally I got that job. Currently I'm working in that job. So this is the one example where I'm trying to say every call is important, every recruiter is important, every contact is important. Try to contact everyone. Try to see who is going to give you a job. We don't know who is going to give you a job, right? One final bullet point here is if you are a Java developer and if you are looking for a job in a Java developer, otherwise you have an experience as a Java developer, try to join a separate WhatsApp group I created for these Java developers. I created means I did not. One of my our ALMPG friend created it. I am part of it. I have added 4 or 5 seniors to the Java developer group. They have like 10 to 15 years of experience, same like me, better than me. And any day, if you have a question, you can contact to that group. Someone will answer. Sometimes I will answer if I know the answer. I am just a human being. I am just one of the Java developers in the whole big world. So I need not be answering to all the questions. I need not be an expert, but there are so many other experts and everyone has their own strengths. So even if 5 years experience guy can answer a question, I might not be able to answer because we are all on the same platform. You can come to that platform and disturb those people, and whoever is on the platform, they can add other people, and whoever is not on the platform, they can give me their phone number to me, and inshallah I will add it. Right, and that.
Brother Fasi, can you share that Java group, Google group link so that people can join in?
Yeah, here itself I'll show. Okay, I forgot. I opened it here. One other thing I'm trying to show is, if you see here, this is the Muslim Java professionals group we created, and if you see, these are the members. I have already 21 people are there, but yeah. If you see this, why it is showing members again and again? Okay, here if you see, there are 270 emails which I forwarded. Most of them are forwarded by me. And if you see, they are all Java openings. Someone is senior, junior, and if you see the February 2nd, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 emails or 6 emails are there. So every day, whatever the emails I will receive, if they are related to Java, there I'm going to send it here. And you can contact them if you are looking for a job. And if you are not ready, you can note down their email addresses and phone numbers, and you can contact them later, right?
Okay, can you paste the link in the chat box so that people can join in? And I'm hopeful that this group is open for everybody, irrespective of their caste, religion, or sex.
Yeah, anyone can join.
Okay, lovely. Yep. Okay, so let's open up for questions. Let me go to the Q&A session mode. So any brothers and sisters, you guys have any questions, please join in queue, and inshallah we can take the Q&A. All right, please join in queue. Okay, Brother Fasi, let's take the first question from Muhammad Muqtadir. Okay, brother, go ahead, Muqtadir, you can speak.
How can I get jobs as a fresher? I have completed just now on Java course.
Okay. You got the question? Hello?
Yep.
You got his question?
So he is a fresher and he wants to make a career as a Java developer, right?
Yes.
So two things I am trying to say here. Number one is, if you are good at programming, what are your strengths? You need to know. Because I have seen some people, I have a very good friend, he was my roommate, and I have seen him every day, and at that time market was so good, he used to get like 20 calls every day, and he gave like 2 to 3 client interviews every week, and finally after 6 months of a gap, he got a job. And after joining the job, within 6 months, he came back and he changed his field to something else. What I'm trying to say here is, if you think you are a programmer means you are a logical thinker, you can construct something, you can make something, definitely you go for it. You have to learn, and two things you have to do. Number one is learn the Java from the bottom. Every basic concept of the Java you have to learn, and you do some practice. 1 hour of reading, 1 hour of practice, whatever the way you want to manage your time. And after that, do some certification if you have money, resources, time. These are all the things if you do, there is a fair possibility of getting a job. And one other thing, if you are in US, people are looking for what is your status. Are you green card holder or citizen? That is another hurdle, but you cannot change that. What you can change is learning the technology, making a resume, making yourself certified. All these things are in your hand. Changing the status is not in your hand, right? So whatever is in your hand, try to do. And other thing is, when you have a question, come back and ask me, ask this group, and pose a question and ask other friends, peers. That way you will get a quick response and you will move forward. You are not going to be stuck. That is my advice.
Right, Jazakallah khair. Actually, that is a fantastic piece of advice. See, I'm going to tell you like this. I myself do a mentoring of a lot of students. A lot of people call me every week. I speak to almost like 5-6 brothers. So alhamdulillah. So what I suggest you is that if you are a fresher with less experience, don't worry about it. What you do is create a 2-page resume or a single-page resume. List out all the projects you have done in your school, in your while you were in your bachelor's, in your master's, whatever experience you have, display that. But as Fasihi also added that whatever is in your hand, do that. Doing a certification gives a bump on your resume, like it boosts up your resume. So what I will say, if you have some time, if you have the resources, make sure you do a certification. This will definitely boost your resume, and your resume will be picked in, will be kind of in the eye line of the recruiters. So do some certification, do some classes. See, it doesn't matter what you put on the resume. If you can defend and if you can do it, it doesn't matter. If you have the experience, if you have the knowledge of that, then only put in the resume. If you don't have the knowledge, experience, don't do it. Don't do it. If you want to put it on the resume, then learn it. Then get some experience and do a project at home. It doesn't matter. Do a project in it. Just do something small, exercise into it. At least have the experience, have the ability to defend it. When somebody is going to ask you, you should be able to defend your resume. That brother Dawood, you have this experience, explain me. So you should have the ability to defend your resume in a beautiful manner. And I'm going to tell you something, brother Fasi, if you don't mind, can I take a couple of more minutes?
Yeah.
So if you, I'll give my example. In 2015 and 15, I was looking for a job and I was out of job for a long time. And alhamdulillah, when I got the job, I had like 9 offers in my hand. And I was confused which one to go in. So I'll tell you how to, when somebody gives you a call, you start an interview, how to appear in the interview. I'm going to quickly explain that. Write a brief paragraph about your experience. The first question any interviewer is going to ask is, tell me about yourself. So what you should say, you should beautifully explain them, how you got into this technology, what was your the latest project which you ended up, and what did you do in your bachelor's. If you are a fresher, you are applying for a fresher position, what you did in your master's or in your bachelor's. But if you are an experienced person, they're going to ask, what did you do in the last previous project. So give them, like I used to give them my example, I come from a business family, so I used to tell them, I come from a business family, I have this, when I was, I'm not making this up, when I was in 9th standard, or, when I was 14 years old, I had done my C++ programming certification. So I told them I had this love for technology, and I was coming from a business background. So I wanted to go into a technology where I can utilize my technical skills and also my business mind. So I got to know about business intelligence. So that's how I ended up in this technology. And I know because I like it. I like to deliver the solution. I like it because it is very competitive and it keeps you updated. It let you be critical thinker, how you can provide the intelligence to the business. So create a small summary and stand in front of a mirror and do it. Do it. When you go to an interview, you also do an elevator pitch, right? Do something like that, because people most of the time interviews here are on phone. So you have to make sure that what you are representing, how you are representing yourself, is the best of your to your ability. Do it 10 times, 15 times. Make sure you do it perfectly, without mistakes, without anything. Be bold about it. tell them, okay, this is what I did, this is how I achieved, and I'm looking for this and this opportunity. Most of the time, one of the personal dialogue or a personal statement I tell them is that, I personally believe it. My father always taught me to believe in triple H. And they used to ask me, what is triple H? I used to tell them my father taught me to be honest, to be hardworking, and to be humble. If you are an honest person, but you are not a hardworking person, then you are a useless person. If you are a hardworking person, but an arrogant person, not humble, then also you are waste. But if you are an honest and hardworking person, now you have to be humble. So combine these three qualities, and hopefully you will become a good asset to the company. So explain them, make a personal statement, create that personal connection in the first interview. Tell them that why they should hire them. See, they are there not to reject you, not to disqualify you. They are there, they are spending their time just to hire the right candidate. If you have this skill, if you are able to sell yourself in a beautiful manner, definitely no interview will go. You will not fail any interview. This is, believe me, wallahi, this works. No matter who you are, man, where you are coming from, apply these skills in a personal interview, in a professional, in an in-person interview, Skype interview, phone interview. Apply these skills. Yes, this session is being recorded. I see a lot of questions coming in. I thought this is important piece of information which I need to share with you guys. Most of you, I believe, are freshers. Don't worry about it. There is nothing you can do it. What you can do, what is in your hand, is that you can create a beautiful resume. There are tons and tons of websites online. People don't do it. The simple fact is that we are being lazy. We don't want to work on the resume. We don't want to work on learning technologies. There are multiple resources online where they provide free education, and we just need internet connection, a computer, to learn all this. You can sit in your computer home right now and learn technologies, but we don't want to do that. I myself sometimes am lazy. I don't want to learn new technologies, but I am telling you, invest your time. The devil doesn't want you to invest time in a good manner. He wants you to watch a movie, play with friends, chat with people. Stop that. At least spend 1 hour a single day to learn something, no matter what that is. Read a book, read a technology, go to a tech website and learn about it. At least have something in your mind. Make it up. That 1 hour straight, I'm gonna sit and I'm gonna learn something new now. So inshallah, do this. Now, taking on next caller, we have Brother Sayyid Zafar Shah. Please go on, ask your question. Brother Zafar.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Please be louder.
Hello, can you hear me? Am I?
Yes, we can hear you, but your voice is pretty low. If you can speak louder.
Okay. Okay. Am I audible now?
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay. So my question is that in pursuit of a job, like what significance does coding skills like the HackerRank challenges and coding puzzles play a role in getting a job, like in the plan that Brother Syed Fasi has specified? Like I see, like when it comes down to interviews, most of the technical interview is around these things. So in like balancing with the technologies, how does this play a significant role?
Yeah, I got it. So that is really important. If you have a time, if you are college, if you are doing something and you found some opportunity for you to prove your skills and you attended that, in your resume you have to make a bullet point and mention it separately, showing that I have been to this particular event and I did this kind of contribution to that event, and I was part of that event, and it may be a coding exercise, it may be a hackathon, it may be something, and which definitely give you a positive point in your resume, and people say, oh, this person has some special talent and he is doing something voluntarily, because no one is forcing you to do and go to that particular hackathon or whatever and do something, right? So you went there and you did it, and it's definitely a plus point and achievement, and you should show in your resume, definitely, yes. And one other question someone was asking in this messages was certification. When I say certification, it means you are going to Oracle right now. This Sun Microsystems is bought by Oracle. So, okay, fine. So what I was trying to say is go to this Oracle website. They are the one who is giving you Java certification now, and pay the fees and attend the exam from this Prometric Center, whatever. I don't know that's what they are calling these days or not. I gave around long ago, like 14, 15 years ago. So you have to do that, and it's not like training or something. You have to get trained by yourself at home. You can download resources. You can talk to people on whatever the way you prepare for an exam and get the certification. It's not about any training, but it's only getting the proper certification from Oracle Corporation. One other thing I was trying to say is around 2 months ago in our masjid, we had a meeting of all the IT professionals, and this thing I'm specifically trying to say on whatever the people we have in my audience today. Some of them might be already in Java, they might be already working in Java. For them, I'm giving this tip. What I'm trying to say is, if you are already in job, already working in Java, never feel that, okay, I'm comfortable, I need not learn anything new. The tech radar, whatever I was showing you just now on ThoughtWorks website, go to that and try to learn something new, because you don't know when you are going to lose your job. When we had that IT professionals meeting, like 60 to 80 people came, and 2 of them told their personal experience, saying that they had a job for 12 to 14 years. After 14 years, they lost the job. And one of the person who was talking in that meeting, he's best friend to me. I know him, and he worked for 12, 15 years in a company called Dell. Dell, a lot of people know Dell manufactures these laptops and everything. So he worked in that company, and all of a sudden, when he lost his job, he lost the job in May. To get a new job, it took a lot of time, many months. In October, he got the job. So that is a painful process. No one wants to starve their family, and just because of your mistake.
Let's take another question. Brother Wajid, go ahead, please speak. Brother Wajid, Sayyid Wajid Ali, go ahead. Hello. I think he is not there. Let's take another caller. Brother Zain, go ahead. Brother Zain, okay, he is not there. That's fine. And we have, I don't know, brother or sister, his name or her name is not available. Okay, go ahead. You can speak now. Hello. Okay, no problem. Let's take the questions in the chat box. Okay, Brother Noor, Brother Sufi, I'm going to read out the question for you, and please try to see if you can answer that.
I can see that. What he's asking is the support. So a lot of people who are coming from this .NET to Java, they feel that there is only one single company who is controlling the Java technologies. That's not right. So for example, WebLogic application server or WebSphere application server or whatever the servers we are using, that particular company is going to provide the support. If there is something wrong and we know for sure the technology is bad, so we will contact that particular company, whoever is providing the service. IBM Data Power has a problem, we will contact IBM. IBM Mainframe has a problem, we will contact IBM. IBM WebSphere has a problem, we will contact IBM. And similarly, if you are using Druze, we will call the JBoss, you know Red Hat, right? So Red Hat is the company who is owning the JBoss and rules and everything, and we will contact them. So support comes from the company who is the seller of the product, and there are a lot of companies and they are making their own products and they are going to provide the support. And if it's an open source, no support, because you're not paying, you're not going to get any support. And the companies which are looking for a support, they will buy paid product instead of using the open source products. So that is the answer we have.
Okay. Is it necessary for a fresher to do a project and apply for the job? Of course, it is necessary. This will show that you are dedicated and you are committed to in that technology. Brother Muqtadir, I hope that I answer your question. And I am doing an apprenticeship in EIL, parallelly searching for job. Is Java in Java? Is it good? Good in what sense? Yes, you are doing good. You are doing a job and you are apparently applying for Java job. What else you want? That is good. Keep going on. Okay, sister Sayyida, yes, we will provide you the whole recording. We will provide you the PowerPoint slide. Don't worry about it. Okay, and any more questions, brother? Okay, Zain, I already answered. Can we get the yes, we can. And can we get Brother Fasi's email address? Brother Fasi, can you just type in your email address in the chat box, please?
On ALMPG website, you see it here.
All right. Yeah, it's there. Okay, guys, you see, one more thing about ALMPG, if you guys are new about it, see, the main concept about ALMPG is bringing the communities together and fill in the gap. See, we have the resources, we have the talent, but we are not united together. So what our hope is that, our vision is that, bring all the minority community professionals together. You know, it doesn't matter which field you are into. Come onto the platform, share your experience, help somebody, or if you are looking for help, you can get help. And one of the best thing about ALMPG is that if I have a job opening in my team, rather than posting it somewhere else, I post it on ALMPG. So you get direct internally referred jobs on ALMPG, which you don't get on any other job platform. That is our vision. So you got the brother Fasi's email address and phone number. One question, okay, what's the use of this data scientist or SASN or SAS developer career? Brother Fasi, you want to answer that?
I did not understand the question.
One last question. See, I think he is trying to know about the data scientist or SAS developer career. Brother Zain, I would like to point out that few weeks back we did a data science webinar. I think last month. It's on ALMPG. Please go and discover it. Let me, guys, you know, in fact, if you guys are on, let me show you how you can find all these resources. Let's take a quick question from Brother Safwan. Brother Safwan, go ahead. Let me share my screen then.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Safwan. Brother, I have a question that I have heard that nowadays Python is too much in the market. So I don't have any programming experience, so I want to learn any programming, any coding. So what you will prefer, that I should go for Python or Java or what else? And you showed the screen, my other question that you showed the screen, there was like Python in the center and it was written 77 and the other numbers were like 87, 99, something like that. So what does it mean, like 77 for Python? So what does it mean?
These numbers are not they don't have any significance. They are just numbers. If you see on the left side, yes. 77 Python, 78 Angular, they are just numbers, okay? But what we are telling is Python has a future. Yes, Python has a future, but you just learn Python and you want to stay only with Python for next 10 years, no, you will be out of job. So what you should do is to immediately get the job, learn Python, and you will be able to get something because Python is hot right now. Similarly, if you learn Angular right now, immediately you will get a job. But once you get a job, try to learn something which will stay longer. As I said, Java is there since 1997-98. I am seeing Java in front of my eyes, and if Allah Ta'ala wills, in next 10 years, I'm going to see this Java language alive, going to give bread and butter to a lot of people. Right?
So what do you say, like as a just fresher, just to go for like Python or Java, because I'm newbie for both of the languages, Java or Python. So what do you see, like what you prefer, that first I should learn Java, Python or Java?
I prefer you to learn both because Java is going to give you a programming experience. Python is going to give you a job today.
Okay, and you said AngularJS, because I don't have experience. So AngularJS, do I need to know any languages before knowing Angular? Because I know that maybe AngularJS is a framework.
Yeah, AngularJS, if you want to learn, you need to know something about HTML, CSS, JavaScript. These are the basic things you need to know. And around 15-18 years ago, I have learned JavaScript by myself. And whatever the JavaScript was available in those days, I have learned in a week, sitting at home, just only a notepad and a browser. That's all I had, nothing, no other resources. So today you have lot of tools, lot of resources available online. Internet is there. At this time there was no internet. I downloaded one book from one of my friends' floppy. In those days floppy drive was there, and I was reading resources. There was no internet, so that's what it is. And one other question.
Let me quickly explain people how they can reach to the previous webinars. Okay, guys, you go log into the ALMPG website. You see member post. You can send a post here. You post a job here. If you are looking for jobs, search jobs here, and accommodation here, trainings here. Now here in resources, you have this tab called webinar event. Go on to that one. And now you will see what are the upcoming webinars. We completed that. We are now on Java. We have these 2 webinars coming up, and these are our past event. So once you go into there, into this tab, I hope you guys can see my screen, right? Okay. I'll log in. All right. Okay, you got it here. Here you will see all the past webinars which we have conducted, and you will find all the details in here, and slides too. Once you go in there, like this one, you go in there, and you will find link to the recording and also a lot of materials. This one was a closed one because we had that for only specific people who already completed the training. So for data science, like the brother was just asking, click on learn more and register. You go in there and you have where is the link here? Documents. Click on documents. You will have all the details here. You see, you have all the details, 93 slides. So you go in and you see, and at the end of the page, you will also see the link for the video recording. But I think most of our recordings are now being uploaded on YouTube. We have a dedicated IT team who is doing that. You see, this is the recording session. You click on it, and that's it. We're going to do the same with Java. You go in there, and you will find all the recording recorded here. Okay? I hope this is clear for you guys. Okay? If anybody wants this.
Yeah, Brother Fuzzy, hello?
Yeah. So all those all the functionality was in one single application bundled into a var or EAR. So that var EAR we used to deploy, and if there is any small change in that var or EAR, that entire var has to be redeployed and entire code has to be tested. So companies don't want to take that much of a big risk. So what they are doing is every smallest component they are developing as a microservice, and they are integrating all these microservices with each other, and they are deploying each separate microservice as a separate application. And all these microservices are developed in your developer boxes as a Spring Boot. So someone was asking about the question on Spring Boot. So my answer is go online, download the Spring Boot software, and create a small project and write a small RESTful web service and do the testing, and that's all. You can say I have done Spring Boot, and if you really want to have some project, you can create whatever the project you want. I will give my example. At home, I always try to do something. So what I did is, this might be a good example for all of you. You can also try at your home. What you do is, you all have a bank statements and credit card statement. I think so, right? So what I do is, I'll go to bank website, download my bank statement, download my credit card statement. What I do is, I'll read the whole statement and insert into database. It can be a project, right? Second way of exploring this, enhancing this project is, write a UI using a Angular or something and display all those transactions. Irrespective of bank or credit card, all those transactions you will see in the screen. The other thing what you can do is, you can group those transactions. All the restaurants I want to see as one single unit. All the grocery shops I want to see as a single unit. So this is a project, and you can explain this project to your client. They will be happy to know you did something instead of sitting idle at the home, right? And you can add whatever the technologies you want. You can add Spring Boot, you can add Spring Batch, you can add whatever you want. You can add JPA, you can add Hibernate, you can add Angular, right?
But I think we don't have any more questions. Let's end it up. It's too long now, 3.5 hours. So Jazakallah khair everybody for joining in. If you guys have any other questions or you want to help the community, feel free to join the community ALMPG if you are not yet a member yet. Any suggestion, anything, any feedback, questions, please email at moderator@almpg.com. Inshallah, we are trying every single day to improve ourselves and inshallah help the community in the best way and in best form. So I want to personally, take this opportunity here and just want to thank Brother Fasi for preparing so much and giving us time, 3.5 hours. But there is a lot of time invested. He invested to prepare those slides and to plan all this, the whole event. So Jazakallah khair, Brother Fasi. I want to thank you on behalf of the whole ALMPG team. This is great. Inshallah, maybe in future, maybe after a couple of months, we can do one more session like this. This will definitely help brothers. At least give them a direction that where they need to go. So guys, please don't worry about it, inshallah. And the last note I want to share with you guys, remember 3 things in your life. Is that first, this is the first is that believe in your Rabb, in your God. The one God who created you from a single drop of blood. Remember that whatever comes to you, whatever happens to you, it is from Him. To ask from Him. He is the one who's going to provide you. Every single morning, the birds fly out with empty stomach, believing and trusting the one who created them, and they come back to their nest with a stomach full of food. So I am telling you, if you guys work hard, if you guys want to, really want that, you will get it. You just have to work for it. Don't worry about it, what situation you are in. Everyone, whether you are in India, US, or any part of the world, everybody goes through this phase of finding a job, improving in their job skills. Yes, everybody goes through this phase. But the best are those people who overcome this and who really get the job done. So I'm going to tell you guys, inshallah, remember, if now we are helping you guys. Once you are in a position to help others, please help them out. Please help them out. This is a sharing and caring model. We have helped you today. We have at least guided you today. Inshallah, guide somebody else. This will improve your skill, and this will, inshallah, give more barakah, more blessing into what you are doing right now. So that is our aim, that, we create a model of community where we help each other out. Not being like the selfish people, who want to make use of the platform and they just leave. No, it's not for the platform. It's not for the people. It is for the community. You have to spend some time out and help the community out, inshallah. And one more thing I want to point out here, ask Allah and, do a lot of astaghfar. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran through his Prophet Nuh alayhi salam, he says to his qawm that, make astaghfar. What happened when you do astaghfar? Allah will give you 3 things. And Allah promises this. And the Prophet says Allah will give you rain, a blissful rain. And Allah will give you children, offsprings, very good offsprings. And Allah will give you with a lot of risk. Risk can risk don't just mean risk means just money. Risk can be a beautiful spouse, or a very obedient spouse, or a very good life partner, parents, everything. Risk has a lot of meanings. So I'm telling you guys, make a lot of durood, say astaghfar, and believe and trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inshallah, He can get you. You can't imagine how powerful that entity is. One of the brothers, I want to share this beautiful thing with you. We have a Quran halaqah here in our masjid, local community masjid, and we were discussing this surah, right? Surah Mulk, and there is an ayah in the Mulk, Surah Mulk, where Allah is saying that, He created the stars just to beautify the sky. A star is bigger in size than our earth, and just imagine how big the earth is. But Allah says He just created the sky just to make the heavens, the sky beautiful, the stars. Believe how beautiful that is. You just saying that, you have somebody in your community who say, I go to masjid in Fajr for this, in this car, I go to office in this car, I go to home in this car. He's telling that how rich he is. But Allah is saying that He just created the star like nothing. It's just like putting the bells on a Christmas tree. People do it, right? Just putting the stars on the Christmas tree. Allah is saying, I created the star just to beautify the sky. So how powerful that entity is. So I want you guys to put your trust in Allah, work hard, make a lot of istighfar, no matter what religion you follow, I am telling you, help people out. It will come back to you. That is the basic essence of the creator's kanun, the law of the creator. If you help somebody, that help will come back to you, inshallah. With this note, with this beautiful note, I want to end up with the name of the creator. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك ونتوب إليك. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. Jazakallah khair everybody for joining. This is your brother Dawood Ahmed. Inshallah, I will see you guys in the next session. Until then, remember me and the whole team of ALMPG and Brother Fasi, your prayer. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.